Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm James.
I'm Callum.
And I'm Callum. We are missing Nathan today.
Yes, Nathan couldn't be here, but we're made up for by Alan being
the
here.
Sunrise Arcade crew represent.
So
today's episode is all about Star Wars fan fiction, because we've had enough of reviewing shit.
Yeah. So
Kinda.
Like to be honest though, I could keep talking about Rise of Skywalker and nitpicking it and complaining about
But
it.
at this point, the horse has become glue. So it's
it's an eternal struggle. Because I was just on the internet today, looking up stuff on the interwebs as you do, and there was some guy talking about how actually the Rise of Skywalker was actually a pretty fantastic film. And I'm like,
it's the
eternal struggle.
Yeah.
Every time someone sees that movie, it just adds fuel to the fire, whether it's good or bad.
It's the Last Jedi problem. It's the all the Disney movies. People are, I just watched Rogue One. I've avoided it for so long. It's the best Star Wars. Shit like that. Yeah. So it's going to be happening for the next decade. But yeah, anyway, I could keep going on about Rise of Skywalker, but yeah, it's beating a dead horse at this point. Like Callum said, the horse is glue.
Beating a dead bantha.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no point in continuing, nitpicking on that movie. And so we're going to do something...
a lot nerdier.
Yeah, even nerdier. But in a way, it is an extension of our Rise of Skywalker review. Yeah, so if you're listening and you haven't heard those, check out those episodes. Yeah, and all the other previous Star Wars reviews we did, listen to those first. So this episode I'm going to call Fixing Star Wars, which is the most...
Making it worse.
No, definitely not. You can't.
Oh, you wait till you hear my fan fiction.
No. Oh, your fan fiction maybe, but not ours. Not mine, at least.
James and me are the only two people in the world who should be trusted with the Star Wars franchise.
Oh, definitely.
Said every nerd ever.
But we mean this for real.
This episode...
You think they don't?
This episode's called Fixing Star Wars, a.k.a. Send Us a Check.
Yeah.
Because, we're doing...
Because it's not fucking hard.
No, it writes itself, which we will show you throughout the episode. Yeah, so I know it's a clickbaity title, Fixing Star Wars, but it's, the most apt, best, just easy title. Yeah, so I'm calling it that. We could, I got so many ideas. I don't know how many ideas Callum has. I'm sure heaps as well.
Oh, look.
Callum, I'm not sure about your ideas.
I just got the one idea.
You just got one, and it's going to be...
choice.
But yeah, so we could do at least 2 episodes, probably more. But I think we're just trying to keep it contained to this and get this done because we still have to review season 1 of Mandalorian and The Witcher, and then there's other movies coming out.
Yeah, never ends.
Yeah, so hopefully, we'll just take it easy, and this episode might be a little longer than usual. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, we're going to talk about all our ideas we have for how the series should have gone, how the Star Wars sequels should have gone, and all that kind of stuff, and how the EU, the original expanded universe in the 90s, the books and the comics and the video games, how they dealt with it, and how Disney, even when they decanonized the whole thing, they could have easily just cherry-picked out a few good things. And
they own the IP.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not like anyone's going to sue them for stealing something, It's
not like on YouTube. How sometimes someone upload their own song, they'll get a copyright claim.
Yeah. It's not a fan. I mean, they feel like fan films, but the Disney movies are legit. Unfortunately. So it's not like a fan film where they can get taken down or whatever, which is kind of sad if you think about it. Disney's movies should be taken down. But yeah, so this is where the fun begins. We're just going to nerd out. And if you thought the other Star Wars episodes were super nerdy, wait until you hear this.
Yeah.
Also, I guess spoiler warning just in case, because we'll spoil Rise of Skywalker and every other Star Wars property, except for maybe Mandalorian, because Callum still hasn't finished.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise full spoilers. But yeah.
So I think my first idea is just Baby Yoda everywhere in every role.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just Baby Yoda is all the characters at all times doing all things.
It's just the Baby Yoda for 2.5 hours. That's it.
And then right at the end, you get Mace Windu rock up and be like, motherfucker.
No, just Baby Yoda sipping cups in various...
that could be Baby Yoda's first word. Motherfucker. But if he speaks like Yoda, it'll be fuck a mother. Oh, we're off to a good start, everyone. This is what happens when Alan's in the studio.
But why don't you start, James?
There are no rules. So first off, I mean, I could do a 100-episode series on this, but we'll just see how we go. George Lucas fucked it all up for everyone, and we're still feeling the effects. He wrote himself into a corner. He painted himself into a corner when he retitled A New Hope Episode 4 and he titled Empire Episode 5 and Return Episode 6. Because then it was like built in that it's like, well, where's 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
And so the prequels, while no one knew if they were ever going to happen, it's like it was kind of
implied,
and it was kind of like if they didn't happen, it would be this weird curiosity of like 4, 5, and 6, and there was no 1, 2, and 3 kind of thing.
Yeah.
He should have, if he was going to do the prequels, he should have at least left the numbering stuff till later, because then if they didn't happen. But really, he should have never done prequels, because prequels generally are a terrible idea. We don't need to see how...
And, I mean, you know, we could talk all day about the problems of each individual Star Wars prequel film.
Oh, yeah.
But the notion that, like, the main sin, as I see it, and granted, like, I am a bit of a hypocrite. Like, I enjoy some of the prequel games. You know, I'm sure some of the books are good.
I think the best thing you can say about George Lucas is that he's a good idea guy. Like, the planets and the aliens in the prequels are kind of fun, and the video games that came out of that are fun, and the cartoons. And that's why I think a lot of people love the prequels now, is because what they actually love is the surrounding material.
Exactly, the universe at large.
Yeah.
But what I think the biggest sin was that he committed was making Jedis like 100,000 Jedi kind of like order.
We talked about this. They turned him into space police with a governmental building next to the Senate. You know, like it was dumb.
So the problem with that going forward is that now the audience has a general expectation that there lots of Jedis, they all have lightsabers.
Public perception, I think I call it.
Yeah, they all flip around. Like, you know what I mean? Like, force powers are ever present.
Yeah.
And that's that's the prequel's fault in a way.
But I mean, just the idea of doing a prequel, like any movie or book or series or whatever, like, we don't need to see how this character was... their origin story, you know, how they got this, how they got to here, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes the fun is just the questions.
Yeah. And especially in terms of Star Wars, I think the road from Anakin to Darth Vader would have been so long and complex that to turn it into 3 movies was a big mistake.
Yeah.
So I think George Lucas, he should have just done sequels in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that would have been the best because, you know, 1993, 10 years after Return of the Jedi, pick up the story, you know.
Everyone still would have been fairly young as well.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's still, you know, a bit older, but still kind of can fit into the action role. You know, you can show Luke looking for other Jedi and starting a new school. Han and Leia have gotten married, maybe starting a family. Then, you know, like 96, you get the middle movie. 99, you get the final movie in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been amazing, especially because in the 90s, you had mostly practical effects.
Yeah.
Probably the peak of practical effects.
Yeah.
But you had the beginnings of CGI and digital effects as well. So they could have really had the best of both worlds. I think making the sequels in the 90s would have been the best.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of CGI in the prequels.
Too much, yeah. And it looks like shit.
It aged poorly, yeah.
And what's funny is, like we said in our sequel reviews, is all the CGI, it's gotten a bit better, but it still looks like shit.
You know...
And it's too much of it.
I understand that for some studios it's a monetary thing, but it's also my understanding that CGI also costs a shitload. So, at least good CGI. Don't forget Escape Plan 2 is a thing that exists. But I just don't understand why, from the studio's perspective, like, they don't make... I mean, they make puppets, but they don't, like, focus on building really nice-looking, really legitimate suits for their characters... Like all the accoutrement that comes with it. Like, they CGI on so much shit.
Yeah, there's that. But I think it's also, like we talked about, is when they do practical effects in the new movies, they try to make it look rubbery and fake.
Yeah.
And I think that's their way of trying to make it look like the original trilogy. But in the process, it makes it look cheap and fake and kind of insulting.
And, you know, one thing I love, this is related, but it sounds like a tangent. One thing I love about Blade Runner is that instead of having, like, I mean, they didn't have CG when Blade Runner came out, really. But instead of having, like, bullshit backdrops, they had matte paintings. Yeah. And they still hold up really well. They look incredible today. Yeah. Instead of having a big, ugly-looking CG world, like, in front of the characters, why not just have a matte painting? Because it's probably cheaper to produce, and then it'll hold up longer, and it'll hold up better in the long run.
I mean, matte paintings I can understand, you know, you have more flexibility with CGI, and at the end of the day, it's a backdrop that's not going to be entered into.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actual environments where the characters have to move around, or, you know, space battles, or, you know, alien creatures, like, you gotta do as much practical as possible.
Yeah, of course.
Like, the CG should be augmenting stuff rather than being the key piece.
No, but what I mean is, like, there'll be scenes in Blade Runner where he'll pass a window.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the matte painting and it just looks incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee that I believe, did they use matte paintings in the special edition of Empire Strikes Back, or was that CG?
They CGI'd everything.
Yeah, and it looks terrible.
And it was unnecessary.
I saw a screenshot and it looks terrible.
Like, you know, because in the original, you know, like Cloud City sequences, like, there's not a lot of windows because, you know, obviously maybe technological limitations. Then George Lucas comes in and starts editing in windows and then putting CGI backdrops outside those windows. It's like, what's the point? And this all ties into the special effects are a tool to aid in telling a story.
Yeah.
They're not the focus of the movie. They shouldn't be the focus of the movie. They should be there to help, you know,
to assist.
Exactly, with the storytelling and developing the world and the characters. And so really, none of this really matters because at the end of the day, it comes down to, is the story good? Are the characters good? Do we care about them?
Yeah.
Is the world, you know, interesting and being developed, you know? So it doesn't matter the CGI, the practical effects, whatever. At the end of the day, it's about the story.
Yeah.
And the prequels, not only they look terrible, the story and characters were rubbish.
Like, there are some scenes in the prequels where I'm like, who gave authorization for that? You know what I mean? Like, some of the dialogue...
like I said, we could do 100 episodes on this. You know, the yes men surrounding George Lucas. It was insane.
I hate sand.
But like I said, they should have just done sequels. Yeah. But if they were going to do prequels, if George Lucas did paint himself into a corner with the numbering, and if he really did have to tell the story of Anakin becoming Darth Vader, he went about it in such the worst possible way. So we're going to start with my idea quickly. We won't go into it because, again, I could go on for hours. We'll start with, I think the prequels, they should have been... One, they should have looked and felt like Star Wars.
Yeah.
The originals. Yes, it's set decades before the originals, but that doesn't mean everything should be shiny, CGI, fake looking.
Like before the fall.
Yeah, it's like he went so overboard with it in the prequels that it didn't even look like Star Wars anymore. So, yeah, I think first of all, you have to retain that feeling, that mechanical, I don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kind of stiff-ish.
That tangible... kind of World War II, but kind of fantasy, kind of Western, Wild West, retain that. Yes, it's set. Yes, you have to have some Jedi and stuff, which are more fantasy, but don't go overboard with the crazy, shiny stuff.
Yeah.
It still has to look a certain way and feel a certain way.
So you're telling me you didn't appreciate the underwater city?
No.
It's kind of cool in retrospect, but
it's unnecessary.
A lot of it feels too shiny and too fake, and it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't look like Star Wars.
So to me, that's a perfect example of George Lucas inserting a biome set piece just so people can be like, doesn't that look interesting?
I think you can do an underwater city in Star Wars, but like I said, the prequels they don't look or feel like Star Wars.
No,
Phantom Menace looks a little bit like Star Wars, but the rest...
Of course you can have an underwater city, but I'm saying that I feel like that was just put in, they're like, well, where do they go next? And George Lucas is sitting on a table being like, I don't know, they spent a wheel and it had like underwater city.
That's part of the story problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like...
You give too much credit. It wouldn't have been a wheel. It would have been like in the South Park episode where they chop off the chicken's head.
Yeah, but like I literally think it's like they pulled the word out of a hat. It's like underwater city. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like I said, that's one good thing you can say about the prequels is like a couple of cool locations. The sequels is just nothing. Has nothing going for it. But anyway, so first of all, it has to feel like Star Wars. Second of all, they should have maybe set it around 30 years roughly before A New Hope, and Anakin should have already been a young man.
Yeah.
We don't need to see his origin. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
He's not the chosen one. There is no prophecy. There is no midichlorians. There is no rule of two. There is no ancient Darth Plagueis Sith magic. It's just a guy who grew up and became a Jedi.
Yeah.
His family, what planet he's from, it's not important. So you already start with that. Obi-Wan is already his master.
Yeah.
You don't need to show that. It's the Jedi Order. He grew up there, whatever. And Obi-Wan is his mentor. Obi-Wan's a bit older.
Yeah.
And you start the movie with like the outbreak of the Clone Wars, which, like I said, I think last episode or the episode before, is not just stormtroopers who all look the same. It's some sort of race of people who procreate by cloning themselves. They may be expanded into a territory of the Empire. The Empire is already established, I should also mention. If you want to show the downfall of the Old Republic, that's a whole nother movie series in itself. So if you want to focus on Anakin's tale, you can't be dealing with the full... I know George Lucas wanted to go hand in hand, but the Empire has already been established.
Yeah.
It might still be young, but we don't need to see that. So yeah, and anyway, these clones get up in the Emperor's grill, and they somehow, the Jedi get involved. The Jedi are not a space police force. They don't have a big temple on the capital city. They have a small, ancient, crumbling temple on a small planet, backwater planet. They're a small order. There's not a lot of them left, because in the original movies, people don't really remember the Jedi. Yeah. Han Solo's never encountered the Force. So they should just be a small religious order. People have heard of them, but then don't really take them seriously. There are a few people who still believe in it, even though they're not Force sensitive. They've heard of the Force, or they believe in the stories of the Jedi.
Down as well, yeah.
So there's that, and then there's Obi-Wan, there's Anakin, there's Yoda, and there's a couple other guys. That's it. You don't overcomplicate it. Anyway, they get involved in the Clone Wars, and the Emperor slowly corrupts Anakin. He's not a whiny, I don't like sand. He's like a more complex character.
He's a Jedi, kind of.
And as the three movies go on, you have to, develop the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, develop the relationship between Anakin and Luke and Leia's mother, which we'll call Padme for the sake of ease. You have to develop that relationship very thoroughly. Everything else is not really important. Showing the corruption of Anakin and his fall to the dark side, showing his building up and breaking down of his relationship, that's all that's important. All the cool space lasers and lightsabers and fighting, that's secondary, as we always say. So yeah, you'd have to do it that way, and the Clone Wars should be the whole three movies, and it should take place over 10 years. Obviously, ideally, you'd have a series to develop this over time. And like I said, Anakin's fall to the dark side should have happened over many years and should have been a much more complex thing. But if you are going to do a prequel trilogy, 3 movies that take place over the course of roughly 10 years. And by the time you get to the last movie, the Clone Wars is coming to an end. Anakin has turned to the dark side. He's not full Darth Vader yet, but he's, perhaps partially mechanical. He's not good anymore at that point.
Yeah. He's definitely tainted.
And then we see Padme taking the children, hiding them. Leia in Return of the Jedi says she remembers her mother, so we have to keep that into play somehow.
It's funny when you mention how she says she remembers her mother. I'm like,
yeah, and then
that's such bullshit.
This is the problem with the prequels, is they make zero sense when you try to connect them to the original trilogy. Because even though George Lucas knew where he had to end up, he still went on he made really weird decisions that didn't make any sense. But anyway, you'd have to, take that into consideration. Maybe she took Leia into hiding and stayed with her for a little while. I don't know why Luke was taken away separately. You'd also have to, again, this is the problem with prequels. We don't need to know this stuff. It's not important. And if you are going to tell this stuff, like I said, it has to be a long, complex series of a show or books or whatever. But yeah, you have to show, maybe the relationship between Padme and Senator Bail Organa and why he took Leia. They have to develop that. They should be very close friends. You have to, I guess, establish who Uncle Owen is and why he took in Luke.
Yeah.
And you also kind of have to do it in a way where Darth Vader wouldn't know that Luke is with Uncle Owen on Tatooine. Tatooine should not be an important world in this, because
there should be no legacy with it.
Yeah, because the way the prequels tell it, Darth Vader should have just gone back to the farm on Tatooine and found Luke when he was a kid.
Yeah,
And it's probably same with Leia. It's like, oh, Bail Organa didn't have a kid before, now he does. You know,
what a coincidence.
So that, you know, it's a much more complex. Again, we don't need to see this, but if you are going to do it, you have to kind of put all those pieces into place. Yeah, and of course, slowly, Anakin's relationship with the Jedi deteriorates until he kills them all. Yoda goes into exile. Obi-Wan goes to Tatooine, you know, and he becomes Darth Vader. Again, like, I know it's an important visual image, but showing Darth Vader, like, Anakin become, like, physically in the armor.
Yeah.
I don't know if you should even show that. Like, I feel like that should maybe come later. But again, like, it's a trilogy of movies, so there are concessions you have to make, so maybe it should end with that. But anyway, we'll move on, because if I talked about the prequels, it could go on forever and ever. But yeah, like, we talk a lot, you know, we say it writes itself, you know, every episode we do, we always say, like, you know, it's easy to make a Star Wars movie. You just, here's point A, here's point B, here's point C. Like, how can Disney not see it? And we always say we'll be talking about a show like Dark Crystal, or we'll be talking about a movie like Creed, or, you know, we'll be like, well, you could easily make this into a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think last episode, the great thing about the original trilogy is that it's balancing so many different things, so many genres, so many ideas, so many influences, and it does it so well.
Yeah.
And so if you are going to make a Star Wars movie, like, you have to kind of do the same thing. And I think, like I said, at the end of the day, it's about the storytelling and the characters, and, you know, picking out any, you know, World War II movie, or any fantasy, medieval fantasy, or any, like, you know, Western, you know, you can easily make that into a Star Wars movie. But be careful, it's a balancing act. You don't want to go too far in certain directions. You don't want to become a parody of yourself or a parody of the genre, you know. So it's hard, but it writes itself.
Yeah, I mean,
to an extent.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't write itself, because then Disney would make good movies, but
yeah,
it writes itself if you're open to, like the Force, you have to be open to the idea. A couple more things before we move on to, like, actually fixing the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But, you know, Rogue One, people say, oh, it's so cool, it's the best Star Wars movie. It's complete trash and I hate it. But I always thought one thing that was so ridiculous about it was that it was, you know, in the original Star Wars, the Rebels destroying the Death Star, that was their first big victory. Yeah. At the opening crawl of A New Hope, it says, like, the Rebels won their first victory by stealing the plans. But that, to me, was like just a small espionage spy, you know, kind of thing. It wasn't a huge battle. And the Rogue One commits the sin of having this huge battle at the end,
you know,
which is almost bigger than the battle at the end of Return of the Jedi, which is supposed to be the biggest battle in the universe, where all the rebellion has come together against the Empire.
It reminds me of Peter Jackson turning, like, one line in The Hobbit into, like, a full battle scene.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Exactly. And I think if you are going to make, again, prequels, they generally, you shouldn't do them. We don't need to see how the Death Star plans were stolen.
I never cared.
No, it's not important. But if you are going to do it, it should be like a spy movie. Like, I always thought it should be like Where Eagles Dare, where it's Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton dressing up as Nazis, going into the Nazi fortress, you know, stealing the shit, you know, and then they get caught and they have to escape. It should be that, with a little bit of, like, Guns of Navarone. Like, it's like men on a mission have to infiltrate a Nazi, you know, stronghold, commit sabotage, and then escape, because they raise the alarm and then you escape. And the end of the movie shouldn't be a giant 40-minute battle. It should be an escape scene.
Yeah. Like
Where Eagles Dare with the cable cars, you know, or I think Guns N' Navarone also has cable cars. Maybe I'm mixing them up. But, you know, like, stuff like that. It should be like, oh no, the alarm's been raised. Yeah. We have, you know, in the original Star Wars, they say the stolen data tapes where the Death Star plans are on. So it's like the rebels, they break in. It's like a heist movie. They're dressed as Imperial officers. You know, they're going in. It's like Ocean's 11, Mission Impossible. They steal the plans. They're about to escape. Someone raises the alarm. Then shit hits the fan. But it's not an epic Return of the Jedi space battle.
No, yeah.
It's like, a couple of rebels have to blast their way out, have to steal a speeder,
Yeah, make their great escape.
and that's the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
Is finally, and we get the data tapes. And again, it's like with the prequel trilogy, George Lucas simplified everything, and everyone knew each other and everyone was connected, and it made this huge universe feel so small. And that's what Rogue One did. It should have just been like, you don't need to see Leia get the plans.
No.
The movie doesn't have to end there. It's just like them stealing the plans and getting away. That's enough. I know you have to have a big final climax, and this also comes back to when they announced Rogue One, we thought it might be a Rogue Squadron movie, and they should have just done that. Top Gun in space.
Yeah.
A fighter pilot movie set in the Star Wars universe would have been so much fun. And, you can do it set before A New Hope, but, I mean, generally, all the Rogue Squadron books and all that were set after Return of the Jedi. But, that would be a lot of fun. And, there's a comic, I think it's called The Tale of Biggs Darklighter or something, and it shows how Biggs, went to the Imperial Flight Academy, became a TIE fighter pilot, realized the Empire was evil, jumped ship, joined the rebellion, became an X-Wing pilot. You can do something like that. You don't have to use Biggs, but you can do something like that and show a part of Star Wars we haven't really seen, where not all the Empire are evil. Like Luke, Luke says, I want to go to the Flight Academy, but it's never explained what that is. But in the canon, if you know, he wants to go to be a TIE fighter pilot. Luke is not evil. We know this. Well, someone doesn't know.
Well, yeah. Ryan.
Yeah. But, he's not evil, but he wants adventure. He wants to join the Air Force, basically. But that's much more interesting. So if you show this sort of complex nature of the universe where, that's also not something that's never really explored. It's explored a lot in the EU, but not in the movies, where a lot of the Imperials went to the other side and became rebels, and that's never really explored. So you could explore that. If you are going to make these shitty prequels, make them count. Don't make boring stories that are unnecessary. Yeah, so I guess we'll move on now to fixing the sequel trilogy. What we would do, what the EU did, and how you can follow that, and maybe go in your own way. Do you guys want to be in? Because once I get going, I won't stop.
We need more Darth Maul.
Oh, don't worry. The Obi-Wan series is coming out soon. He's going to come back.
Well, so I only really have 2 ideas.
Yeah.
And the 2 ideas are, what I will do for an original story about a Star Wars.
Do we want to leave those ones for later?
It doesn't really matter. Like I said, there's no rules.
And then I have is there anything I could do to fix the current sequel trilogy as it is with those characters?
All right, well, we'll do that one because that'll probably tie into my ideas.
So number 1, Rey is just... The first major change is Luke Skywalker does not go into exile.
Yes.
He stays as a Jedi Master.
Starts a school.
Yes, in this fixed version, Kylo Ren still defects, becomes a bad guy, but Luke doesn't then just disband what remains of the Jedi Order.
Yeah. It's
just one loss of a student, bad apple, whatever. Yeah. Continue
the fight.
Exactly.
Like Luke should.
Rey isn't just stranded on Jakku. She's just another Padawan or Jedi Knight or whatever you want to deem her.
Yeah.
And essentially, the whole cast remains the same. There's still, instead of the Rebellion... It's the new
New Republic, yeah.
The New Republic. And yes, instead of the First Order, there's the remnants of the Empire.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it's like the pieces are basically the same.
Yeah.
It's just no more renaming bullshit. It's the Empire.
Yeah.
The remnants, the last Grand Admirals, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And what I would do with Kylo is I would take a leaf from the old legacy books thing, and the whole idea would be Kylo Ren would essentially get a Force vision about a Yuzan Vong-esque bad guy.
Okay. Oh, we'll get into that later.
Yeah. And essentially the whole arc, because Kylo Ren would be one of the main protagonists.
Yeah.
You would have him racing against time to try and find allies to fight against this thing that he thinks is coming.
He's not actually a bad guy. He's a bad guy. He's seen as a bad guy because
he is a bad guy, but across the sequel trilogy, he would have to kind of...
That's interesting. 'Cause
transition.
that takes it into a different direction.
Yeah, so it's like there used to be an old conspiracy theory that the Palpatine himself was only building the Star Destroyers because he knew that those invaders were coming, and so it's in a similar vein. He's in the Empire. He's a bad guy. He's a bad dude, commits war crimes and all, etc.
Yeah.
But when he has that vision, he's like, shit. We have to gain allies. We don't have enough firepower.
Yeah, bring everyone together.
So it's
That's
essentially
interesting, actually.
him going from place to place as a criminal, being like, no, you have to listen to me, and then all the fights along the way or whatever.
That's actually a really interesting story that takes it in a different direction.
Yeah. And the trilogy, of course, his arc would be transitioning to more of a neutral character. But on the flip side of as well is Luke coming to terms with what it means to have a student who's a bad guy.
Yeah.
The whole stuff about legacy, my father was a bad guy, now my nephew's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And the students that he currently has responding to what's going on in the universe at large.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea.
But that's a brand new idea, kind of keeping the current cast. And
well, that's what I want to start with is like there are many ideas I have and there are many ways to go about this. Firstly, you could keep roughly Force Awakens the same, but change a few key things to make it an actual good movie and an actual good Star Wars sequel. Then, of course, you could do like completely change everything. Then you could do something that's like more like the EU. Then you could do something that's just not like anything at all.
Yeah.
But I think first off, we'll start off with like keeping Force Awakens kind of the same, but let's turn it into a good movie. And as we've done that like over the past few episodes, with all the Star Wars reviews, I always say, well, they should have done it this way, they should have done it that way. But like, we'll set it out in a way from start to finish where the biggest change you'd have to make is no Starkiller base. No planet-killing weapon, don't need it.
Yeah, tired.
It's old. I think in replacing that, you have to... Basically, the second half of the movie has to be a lot different. Where replacing that, they turn it into like a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of thing, where it's like Rey trying to find Luke. Instead of Indiana Jones trying to find the Ark, it's Rey trying to find Luke, who's this mysterious Force Master. No one's seen him, whatever. So you can still keep the bones of Force Awakens to an extent. Then, like I said, it's all about the visuals as well. They need to lock that shit down. The Force Awakens is an ugly movie. I don't like the designs. The stormtroopers shouldn't be stormtroopers. They should look like different warriors. The First Order should not just be an Empire ripoff. They should be like a small terrorist organization. They should be basically the rebels from the original trilogy, because now the rebels from the original trilogy have become the New Republic.
Yeah.
So the New Republic has become the Empire in a way.
The guerrilla fighters are the bad guys this time.
Exactly. So, but this time around, so the New Republic also needs to be established because it's not established in any of the new sequel movies. So that needs to be set up. And the First Order need to be set up as like a small organization.
Space ISIS.
Yeah, because in Force Awakens, the First Order is supposed to be this fringe organization, but they're huge and they have all these resources and they seem to be running the galaxy already. We don't see any mention of the New Republic. And Leia has already started the Resistance, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no.
And so they need to simplify that shit. It's the New Republic who are now running the galaxy. Yeah. They're like the Empire. They have big ships. They're more peaceful and progressive and whatever.
Yeah, they're democratic.
But exactly. But they run shit. And the First Order are just like a small band of rebels, sort of, But this time around, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of...
Space neo-Nazis.
Sort of, in a way, yeah. And, keeping things the same. Rey, I think I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between keeping it similar to Force Awakens and then just going like, they should have done this instead.
Yeah.
So I think, if you are going to make Rey a nobody looking for Luke, that's fine. But like I said, it has to be like a Raiders of the Lost Ark thing where halfway through the movie, she should find Luke and then he should train her.
Yeah.
No fucking around, no where's Luke, no who's her family. It's like just, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, they find the Ark and then the rest of the story happens. So you find Luke and then the rest of the story happens with Luke now included. I think those are the big changes you need to make. Kylo, depending on how far you want to get away from Force Awakens, like probably he should have not been related to anyone, and he should just been an ex-student of Luke's. I always thought it'd be interesting if he was like Kyle-Katarn, who was an ex-stormtrooper who became a Jedi, but sort of a more evil version. Like he was an ex-stormtrooper, became a Jedi under Luke Skywalker, didn't like how the New Republic was doing things, didn't necessarily like things under the Empire, but
he wanted a third way.
Yeah, and so he goes off and starts the Knights of Ren and the First Order, which aren't really connected to the Empire, but like a fringe organization. It's like we'll do it our way.
Like the Demons in Death Stranding, kind of.
Sort of, yeah. Maybe
no, I mean, like,
not
they
really.
They appear and do bad stuff.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, the terrorist aspect is the same, but they're more like neutral political actors. Like, but they have their own ideas about things, and that knocks heads with how the New Republic does things. It depends how complex you want to get. You can you can sort of develop the idea of maybe the New Republic is getting complacent and he's getting a bit, what's the word? They're turning into the Empire.
Kind of getting fat off the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can play with that, but again, like we always say on other episodes, keep in mind this is a space fantasy adventure.
Yeah.
Romantic, sweeping, swashbuckling adventure. If you really want to get down into that shit, write a novel, make a TV series. At the end of the day, if this is a 3-movie trilogy taking the story forward after Return of the Jedi, you have to be careful how far you push that stuff. Not that I'm saying you can't have it there. You just have to balance. Like I said, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, got to spin all the plates.
Exactly. So there's that. Then I think Finn... We talked about this, I think, in the very first Force Awakens review episode. Finn's an interesting idea, poorly executed. The idea of a child soldier kind of coming to terms with the fact that the life he has known his whole life is not the right way, is objectively evil, and then slowly turning to the good side and fighting against his former brothers in arms. That's interesting. But The Force Awakens does it in 1 second.
Yeah.
Finn is shooting at some villagers, sees one of his friends die, takes off his helmet, then he's good guy. And he spends the rest of the movie running around yelling and joking and making funny quips. And he has no development after that. There's no question to his loyalties. There's no interesting...
He steals Poe's jacket, right?
Not steals because he thought Poe was dead and the jacket was hanging off the wreckage, and then later Poe...
In my books, I'm the black man stealer.
No.
I mean, grave robbing, you could take... But then he wasn't dead, and then Poe did say he could have it, so...
Don't stir up trouble, Al.
I'm just saying, stereotypes, man.
But I think, again, if you want to keep the bones of Force Awakens, having BB-8 with the plans, escaping Jakku, whatever... Having Rey bump into BB-8 and, then Finn, instead of Finn abandoning his post, he's actually following BB-8, who runs into Rey. Then he kind of pretends to be an ally.
Yeah.
And says, no, I'm with the New Republic. That's my droid. And she's like, hang on. And he has to stick with her until he can get the plans back to his boss, Kylo. So he's trying to get in the good books. Then, as the adventure goes on, the more he fights alongside Rey, trying to get in her good books, trying to betray her, he realizes, like, hang on a sec.
Maybe she's not that bad.
She's not that bad. The New Republic's not that bad. Are we the baddies? You know that meme? Are we the baddies? It's that kind of thing.
He looks in the mirror at his like hat with the skull on it. He's like,
And that could also come sort of halfway through the movie where, she finds out he's actually First Order, and that he was going to betray her and steal the droid and possibly even kill her. And then you get the breakup moment that happens in every film where it's like, you betray me, and they split ways. And then when Rey gets kidnapped by Kylo, he goes to save her and proves her his loyalty and fights Phasma, who is his mother figure and who is his mentor and who is his boss.
Yeah.
Kills Phasma, therefore cementing his loyalty to Rey and the New Republic.
Yep.
And they kiss, and, the end.
They ride off on a horse into the sunset.
Yeah. Instead of the weird shit we get in Force Awakens, where they're, like I said, it happens in the first 5 seconds of the movie. He's good now. He makes a lot of jokes and runs around and quips. And Rey is Superman, and she escapes on her own. And when she finds out his first order, she's just like, "Oh, you okay?" And then he's like, "Sorry, gotta leave. I'm scared."
Yeah.
And then he kills a bunch of random stormtroopers who used to be his friends with no emotion or regard. And, Phasma's turned into a joke.
Yeah.
So whereas I do it and you get 3 character arcs, from all of that, you get a lot of development, and you get a swashbuckling romance that these movies should be centered around.
Yeah.
Finn and Rey's romance should have been established early on and played out throughout the trilogy.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I think if you are going to have Finn be Force sensitive, introduce that early on as well, along with Rey. And then when Rey does find Luke, Finn kind of is still maybe on the fence of his loyalties, but once he sees Luke and his school and his students, and then he kind of realizes, hey, maybe this is not such a bad thing.
Wouldn't it be interesting if instead of Luke being in exile by himself, he actually took his students as well? To be away from the New Republic, because maybe he feels that the universe at large, as it stands, is conducive to the dark side.
That's an interesting idea.
Like the political turmoil, it might have an impact on the developing Force psyche or whatever.
And then Rey finding him in the middle of Force Awakens and convincing him for him and his students to come out of hiding
to rejoin the universe,
to rejoin the fight. And you can have Luke say, "No, fighting leads to the dark side," yada yada.
Yeah.
But that's why I think, like I said in one of my earlier episodes, like if Luke gave Rey his green lightsaber as a token of like not only handing the franchise over to the young new character, but also like you're the fighter, you're the hero of the New Republic, just in the same way I was the hero of the rebellion 30 years ago. You fight, and then once you defeat the evil, you will realize, you will come to the same realization I have, and you will rejoin us here in peace.
Yeah.
That's much more interesting than the great subversion of, oh, he was good, now he's grumpy.
Yeah, Jedis suck.
Jedis were great, now they suck.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Luke Skywalker doesn't have faith in anyone. He's shit.
The end.
Yeah.
It's like, hang on, like you can develop that idea over the course of 3 movies. That would be interesting. Have Luke lost a student, and that has shaken his faith. That's interesting. Play with that for 3 movies. Don't play with it with 1 movie and just by saying it's subverted, the end.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
1 flashback scene.
Yeah. Also, then I think it would be cool, like we said, I think last couple episodes, having Luke train Finn and Rey together, having them help each other. I think it would be really cool if maybe in one scene there's something bad going on and Rey's trying to lift something with the Force, but she can't do it. And then Finn comes up behind her and helps her, and they both lift something heavy together, in a time of, battle or something, not just randomly, and that would be great. And they kind of bond together over the Force, and their romance blooms as the movie goes on. And if Rey, the only thing is like, we talked a lot about like lightsabers and how in the original trilogy they're special. It's like the fights have emotional weight. People don't just pull out lightsabers willy-nilly.
Light a cave.
Yeah. The prequels, they went nuts with that because they made the Jedi space police who all just have a million lightsabers, and everyone, like, they're like factory made, like everyone just has them.
And let's not forget there was a droid which had like 8 lightsabers.
Yeah, General Grievous was just stealing lightsabers, collecting them like a nerd with Star Wars figures, and
you
like
sell that merch somehow.
And Obi-Wan carries spares because he knows Anakin always loses. Like, it's a joke. And then you get the sequels where anyone has a lightsaber, and just like it's willy-nilly. And I'm like, if you're doing our version of the movie where it's like the new Jedi Order has already been established and Luke's students are already there, I wouldn't be opposed to a couple of lightsabers here and there.
I would say that, like, not all of the... Like, if we did have a school, not all of them would.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. But, like I said with Yoda, like, some Jedi just don't carry lightsabers.
Don't need them.
And I think if you are going to... One of my ideas was if you're going to establish this new Jedi school, there should be a lot of different ages, a lot of different genders, a lot of different alien species.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know in the books, if you found someone who was if like Luke found someone who was force sensitive, they would be brought into the fold. It's not like with the prequels where it's like there's like the kids.
Yeah,
school.
it's like George Lucas again ruined the Jedi, and the sequels kind of took this into consideration, where it's like the Jedi were like child snatchers.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I like about the EU, and like Luke would just find an old guy who was force sensitive and be like, "You want to come to my school? We're all going to train together."
Yeah,
and this like little old man would be like, "Cool," you know.
And then before you know it, he's a Jedi master.
Yeah, and like it'd be cool if you had like just, and again, it doesn't have to be this huge. It's not, like I said, it's not Hogwarts.
No,
it's not. They're not space police. It's a small Jedi temple. I like in the expanded universe, like they use the temple from Yavin, you know, the old rebel base. I like that idea. You can keep that idea. You don't have to, but
yeah,
you know,
it works.
And just there doesn't have to be a million Jedi. And also, they shouldn't have a uniform. They just they wear whatever space clothes because it's a fantasy. They wear fantasy clothes, and it's just like they train together. They live together. They're all different in ways.
Yeah,
there could be a little mouse alien guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Who doesn't have a lightsaber, but he's really strong in certain other aspects.
Yeah.
There could be a big bulking, the hammerhead alien.
Yeah.
But he could be strong in, other ways, like you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that also gives the opportunity, like we talked about, I think last week, Disney has such a big hard on for getting rid of the old stuff and bringing in the new stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you want to do that, have a bunch of young, hot Jedi students do like an ensemble kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like have, Finn, Rey, and another, there's Harry Potter, Ron, and Hermione.
Yeah.
Have like 3 young, hot, force-sensitive kids who all get trained by Luke. Still have Luke be an important part of the story. Still have Leia, Han, Lando, Chewie.
But they're supporting characters.
Yeah. Exactly. And we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about how, you can still develop Luke and the original trilogy characters, but in a supporting role as they pass the torch down to the new characters and take the movies forward for the future. Like the way Cobra Kai does it, like the way Creed does it. And we'll talk about that. Because the way Disney does it is just like, ignore all that old stuff. We're going to use it for nostalgia, for money making, brand recognition.
Yeah, that's it.
But other than that, screw that.
Yeah.
We got the new characters. They can all run around and make jokes. And it's like this. Look where it ended up.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in a sec, and we'll talk about that. All right, so we're back, and before we move on, Alan wanted to give his idea for how to make a good Star Wars.
A Star Wars. I won't say good.
Okay.
It's more...
better than what we've been getting.
Possibly. So, as I've said many times, I wouldn't call myself like a full-on Star Wars fan.
Yeah, like casual fan.
Yeah, casual fan. I enjoy the world and kind of the things inside of it. And as you mentioned, there's kind of that specialty of lightsabers. Yeah. So it's going to subvert that a little bit. Okay. Not to the point where everyone's rocking a lightsaber, but a little bit. So it'll be on like some distant, really, really shitty planet. And that planet is entirely controlled by the Empire.
Okay.
So it is like their junkyard / like proving grounds and among other things. So a lot of it's got like a bunch of broken ships that they're using kind of slave labor to salvage.
Junkyard, that would be cool, yeah.
Other parts of it are just kind of like some training stuff or troops and everything else. Another part of it is basically where they take anyone they find as force sensitive and then try and push them into the dark side.
Yeah.
So they pretty much torture and harass these people.
Maybe the junkyard's like a cover for like an underground like...
And essentially like whoever they can't use, they'll also throw them into the junkyard to work as well.
Okay.
So they'll torture and kind of push the people into the dark side, whoever doesn't accept.
Yeah.
They'll maim them in some kind of way.
Okay.
And then cause them like a lot of grief and then throw them into the workers area. And kind of just have them slave it out for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And out of the group of people that have been kind of maimed and tortured that are force sensitive, a few of them kind of come together.
Yeah.
And one of them will probably be a blind guy because I love blind guys. That can
blind swordsman.
Blind swordsman.
Classic.
One of them will be a guy with no arms, so he's going to be the kick man.
Yeah.
And then will be somebody whose like legs are completely chopped off, so he's like the torso guy, the big torso.
Well, see, if they're force sensitive,
so at least they have mechanical parts.
They don't need. Like if they're using their mind, they can like telekinesis stuff. But then, depending on where the movie goes,
Yeah.
they could get robot limbs later.
They could get robot limbs because they're working with the salvage people and stuff.
Yeah.
And they work to their strength. So you're getting some kyber crystal from somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody smuggled it somewhere in some caves in that planet.
Yeah.
Because there's all slavery going on. And they use it to build mini lightsaber-esque weapons. So rather than have... Yeah. So this is the subversion.
I don't like that.
I like Dagger.
Yeah, like Dagger's all, like the guy with no arms, he'll have something that he can use to kick with.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're going to fight back against the oppressors, and they have their own Sith.
Yeah.
So they can't just go in with blasters and shit. They need a little bit more. And it'll essentially be a group of those kind of force-sensitive people that have been maimed by the Empire, and particularly somebody on that planet in that department. Who's a big main bad guy. And essentially it's just them kind of just defeating them, taking over the planet, and kind of freeing everyone and doing their own thing. And it's a side story. It's got nothing to do with Luke or any other person.
That would be cool.
I'm going to be honest. It sounds a little dark Disney Star Warsy to me.
Hey,
like, like Rogue One, everyone was like, oh, it's the darkest Empire.
Yeah, but it depends. Again, it depends how you execute it.
Yeah.
Like you get to see the people getting maimed and shit. So.
Yeah, but I'm like,
Like, if you execute... See, again, I have to... I mean, I know I always repeat myself, but you have to think of a time before the prequels. There was a time where Star Wars still felt like the originals. As silly as sometimes it got, like, that's because all people had to go off was the originals. So if they made a story like this, it would feel so much like the original trilogy. It would feel like it's set in Star Wars. Whereas now, we're 25 years on, and it's like you say that story, and Callum's like, oh, I don't know, Disney will fuck it up. Oh, I don't know, everyone is going to be flipping like the prequels, It's because it's so ingrained in us now. And that's why I said last episode, Star Wars is dead. Can't do it anymore. But I think that's a fun idea, and I could see that working.
But that wouldn't be like a series or a show. I think it'd just be like one singular movie.
That would be a good like one-shot comic book.
Yeah.
And really, with something like that, you could always have one of those characters go off and find Luke, Yeah. It could work.
Because they would, I'm assuming, rescue some people from the...
And if they all escape, and then, some of them go off and do their own thing, but some of them are like, let's find this Jedi Luke Skywalker guy or whatever. Or he finds them, Maybe he's been looking for the planet, but he can't find it or something, and then when they escape, it alerts him or whatever.
Yeah, that could be something.
That would be cool.
Yeah, but that was my main idea. It was a little subversive because the weird weaponry, but I'm like,
Yeah, that's too far for me, but all the other stuff I think's cool. But speaking of lightsabers, if you are going to have a new trilogy and you are going to have an already established Jedi school, some of them can have lightsabers, some of them, don't have to. But I think one thing that I think would be interesting is, and like the originals, I think every time a lightsaber fight happens, it should be important, it should have weight. It shouldn't just be Finn running around killing stormtroopers. It should be like a duel or something. I think having Finn and Rey kind of going throughout the trilogy, being trained by Luke, if Rey has Luke's green lightsaber, what does Finn use kind of thing? Yeah. I was thinking it would be interesting if when Kylo left Luke's school, he left his old lightsaber behind, and Kylo created his new red lightsaber, and Finn gets to use his old lightsaber, which would also be interesting because Kylo would technically, in this version of the story, be Finn's old master.
Yeah.
So it's like Finn's using his old master's lightsaber, Rey's using her new master's.
It also make for a good, quick moment when Kylo sees the lightsaber. Yeah. And then there's a recognition.
Especially if when they do come together and fight, and it'd be like Finn versus Kylo versus Rey kind of thing. It's like, they're all... that would have a weight to it, I think.
That, again, has to play into the fact that lightsabers are very rare and very kind of...
Exactly.
Because, as you said in the sequels, if every man's got, 2 lightsabers apiece...
It's not a factory thing. It's like you make it yourself, and then that's your sword for life. So, I think at some point, I think it would be interesting if Rey and Finn, make their own lightsabers. Yeah, so it's difficult because, you have to have characters... You want characters to have a lightsaber and to have sword fights, but you also then you want them to have their own swords, but they can't just pull them out willy-nilly, and
No.
they're not factory made, so it's like they have to make those.
You could just do what they did with the originals, and like between movies, they just acquire them.
That's what I'm saying is like start maybe the first movie, Rey uses Luke's old lightsaber, Finn uses Kylo's old lightsaber.
Yeah.
Then between the first and second movie, they make their own lightsabers. You know, it's more complicated.
Yeah, of course.
But don't have it like the prequels or the new movies, which is like everyone has lightsabers.
Yeah, why
willy-nilly.
not? Yeah.
Also, I like playing with the idea of if Kylo, because I always thought. So there's a history to this where originally in the original movies the lightsabers were just going to be white, all white, like it was just a light sword, like energy sword, like it didn't have a color. But then they're like, well, when Luke's, when Obi-Wan's fighting Darth Vader, it's like they look the same. You can't tell what's going on.
Yeah.
You can't tell who's who. So it's like they made Darth Vader's red because he's a bad guy, and they made Obi-Wan's blue. And that's where the kind of colored lightsaber was kind of born. And then in Return of the Jedi, when Luke makes his new lightsaber, it was originally blue. And if you see the old posters, it's blue.
Yeah.
I think the original teaser trailer, it was blue. But then when he's fighting on Jabba's, the skiff, it's like there's all that blue sky, and it's like you blended into it and it was too hard. And now, like, what if you make it green?
Yeah.
And so pretty much since then, the sort of colored lightsaber was born, and everyone was like, oh, you can have whatever color you want. And then, of course, later on, there was the crystals, and it's like you have to choose your crystal, and it's different colors, yada, yada. And then, of course, you get like, well, all the Sith and all the dark side people have red lightsabers because of that. I understand that. It's kind of simple, black, it's good versus evil. But I'd like to maybe play with the idea of, Kylo, depending on how far you got going with this version of the movie, if he's just 100% bad or if he's just kind of neutral or whatever, maybe he doesn't have just a red lightsaber, he has like a different color, like yellow or like a magenta.
It's like I was saying, it's like with the idea I had of my restructuring, you could also have the lightsaber change across the film. So he starts off with the red one, but then somehow he has to pick up a new one via Deus Ex Machina or whatever.
Yeah, we don't, obviously, again, there's a lot of characters in this new trilogy, and like we don't want a lot of lightsaber changing. We don't know, again, we don't want them to come out willy-nilly. But like, I think it would be more interesting if if red didn't just automatically mean bad, like, because it's like
that'd also be
Kylo,
a good way to throw people off, wouldn't it?
That's a good point too. He could have a red lightsaber, but he ends up being not such a bad guy.
Yeah, like it's just a crystal. At the end of the day, it's just a crystal.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I wanted to talk about like Rey's staff that she has in Force Awakens, which she has for the whole trilogy, but it's never really a thing.
Yeah.
I thought
it was a thing for toys, basically.
Pretty much. Like they should have made that her weapon until she gets a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, because then there's that stupid bit. Fuck, I hate Force Awakens. She gets on the Millennium Falcon and Han gives her that shitty old blaster that looks like crap and it looks fake and doesn't look like it's Star Wars. And she uses that the rest of the movie, but she still carries around her staff from time to time. I'm like, the staff should have been her weapon.
Yeah.
And then when she gets the lightsaber, they retire the staff, I think it would have been much more interesting if that was part of her character, that she used that. Also, I like the idea of in sort of the prequels, and when you have the idea of a Jedi, even before the prequels ruined everything, when you have the idea of a Jedi, it's like a medieval knight or something.
Yeah.
It's a guy with a sword. So to have any other weapons feels like...
Yeah, it's like, not right.
Yeah. But what I like about the original trilogy is because Luke is new to the whole thing, and he's still living and working in a world which is like a Wild West, World War II space world, where, he still has his blaster on his hip, and he uses that blaster throughout, Empire Strikes Back until he has to fight Darth Vader. Again, unlike the prequels, unlike the sequel trilogy, you don't pull out a lightsaber willy-nilly. A lightsaber is a close-range weapon. It's a sword. You can't use a sword to fight a guy with
a blaster.
You can't. Well, you can because you can deflect it, but you know what I mean. You can't. So when Luke comes up against Boba Fett at Cloud City, it's a shootout. It's a Wild West kind of thing. It's a great shootout. And then when he confronts Darth Vader, then he pulls out his lightsaber. You know, so it's that kind of thing where I think they could take that a bit further in the sequel trilogy, where, yeah, once you become a Jedi, you probably stop carrying a gun, you know, but I think it would be cool maybe for Kylo or for Finn, who are sort of on the fence of good and evil. It would be cool if, you know, one of them still carried a blaster. But I think to make, like I always say, to make action scenes different, because the sequel trilogy is so boring and has such dull action scenes that are not creative at all. To make just an idea I had to make a lightsaber fight with a bit of difference in it, you've got a guy carrying a lightsaber in one hand, a blaster in the other, and so he has a long range attack and a short range attack, and so it's kind of harder for so it's like Kylo Ren has a blaster pistol in one hand, lightsaber in the other. He's fighting Rey, but he's shooting at Finn, who's, you know, further away, you know, and so they can't get close to him, you know, and it's like, that would be really cool, I think. That makes it a bit of a different kind of dynamic. Instead
of having like a lightsaber with a crossguard, or
which
as in that silly thing from Rise of the Skywalker where it's like the Swiss Army lightsaber.
Yeah, I hated that. Yeah, like I think, you know, as much as the prequels suck, the double-edged lightsaber was as good as you're gonna get for lightsaber designs. Yeah. After that, it just becomes silly kid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's all you can do. Yeah, so we were talking about, like if you're going to introduce this new, you know, the new young characters, that's fine. Like I said, it's probably a good way just to have all of them already established as Jedi. They all have lightsabers. You don't have to worry about introducing, you know, making the lightsaber or getting the lightsaber. It's just, you know, it's been 30 years. Luke's already set up his school. He's got a few students. Here's the story now. I think that would be an interesting way. Like, you know, in the Jedi Academy trilogy, Luke finds some Force-sensitive people and he trains them. And it's like, you know, there's the old guy from Bespin who's like really good at harnessing like elements in the wind. And there's like a young like warrior Princess Xena type woman. And then there's another woman who's like really bookish and she's into historical. She finds all the Jedi artifacts and stuff like that. And then there's Kip, who's like a Luke kind of young, idealistic warrior. And they're just the new gang. They're the new Jedi.
Then they fucking shoehorned Corran Han in Jedi.
Shit.
And
that was dumb.
Worst Star Wars novel I've ever read.
They should. I know they wanted to retcon some stuff, but that was the worst way to do it. Anyway, we won't get into that. But, you know, like, it's like they're the hot new crew. Yeah. It's like they're the new Jedi now, and Luke's just their master. Yeah. He's still an important character. He's still an important person. But it's like, if Disney really, really wanted to just start this new trilogy with the new hot characters and not have to worry about they could have done that by just saying, like, here are the young Jedi that Luke trained between Return of the Jedi and the new movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, now they're on an adventure, and then they go see Luke, and he gives them a mission, and then Leia's there, and she's like part of the New Republican Senate, and she gives them a message, and then, you know, there's a Jedi artifact and whatever, and it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
No one would complain, and we'd be in a much better situation than we are now.
You could even call the movie, like Star Wars, The New Jedi Order. Something like that to start off the trilogy.
Better than Force Awakens.
That's what I was thinking.
What does Force Awakens mean? I still don't know.
Yeah, that's like, I'm like, because it has the movies of the originals were simple. Yeah. You had Star Wars.
Yeah.
And A New Hope, if you want to call it that.
You know what they should? Star Wars, Episode 7, Jedi's Rising.
Oh, yeah, or just...
I don't know.
The Jedi Order, or whatever. And
New Jedi Order, yeah.
But then you had, like, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They were punchy, they got the point across. Yeah. No nonsense. Yeah. Instead, we get Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Also, this ties into, we've talked about this many times before, Rey should have just been a Skywalker, and that's it. If they're going to start this new trilogy with all these new young Jedi trainees and you know, new students, just have one or two of them be related to the original trilogy characters. Doesn't have to be a big deal, but it carries the legacy on. They can be their own characters, do their own thing, but you have a few scenes with them passing of the torch, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and like I said, I think last episode or whatever, it's like, have like, you know, Ben Skywalker and his sister Rey training with their dad Luke and a couple of other non-related students, and then one of the non-related students Kylo. He goes off and does his own thing, and they have to go after him, maybe try and bring him back. But he started a new kind of Knights of Ren bad guy kind of thing,
Yeah.
And then they meet Finn, and then Finn and Rey develop a romance, and Ben maybe gets tempted to go to Kylo's side. Maybe the middle movie is him leaving Luke's school and going to the Knights of Ren. And
Or
then
there could be an incest storyline between the brother and sister. Hey, Lucas hinted at it. All right.
It's a Star Wars tradition, but you know what I mean, right? Like, this is pretty simple stuff, and it's a lot of it gives you a lot of room to play with a lot of different storylines, character arcs over 3 movies.
Now, this is slightly more criticizing movies than trying to fix them. But so, at the start of The Force Awakens, who's in charge of the galaxy, or who holds?
No one.
Alan, we've talked about this for hours.
No one, right?
We've talked about this for hours. It doesn't make any sense. You have to read a whole bunch of novels to understand anything, and even then, it's a load of shit.
So, unfortunately, what happened was, after the original 3 movies, no one had any more Star Wars. Can you imagine being a kid after Return of the Jedi, only to be told, we don't know if there's going to be any more? So what happened was Lucas made a whole bunch of books. Lucasfilm commissioned a whole bunch of books.
George Lucas licensed out the rights to Star Wars to a whole bunch of authors.
Yeah.
And Lucasfilm, they had the final say. They had the final cut of the book, if you can say that. But at the end of the day, it was basically up to the authors to
they were pretty loose
flesh
a little.
out. Yeah.
So you had this whole universe of books and comics that you could pick up and get more Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I guess Disney saw that and they were like, well, we'll do that with ours. We'll have books set between our movies. But it doesn't work because the whole reason why the original novels were so good was because it was all after the film. This was all just stuff that wasn't
in addition to, you watch the movie,
it wasn't necessary.
You watch the movie, you get everything you need out of the movie. If you want another adventure set in this universe, if you want some more cool world stuff, then you read a book. But now it's kind of reversed, where the new movies don't explain anything,
and you have to read the books,
and you kind of have to read the books
to
get the understanding. But even the books, from what I understand, are pretty shit.
I tried reading one. I couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it. It wasn't exciting.
Yeah.
Because we've always got the Rebels, the First Order, whatever they are. Then you've got, because they build the Death Star ripoff, and then they're destroying like 5 planets in one go.
Yeah, which is stupid.
Like, whose side were they on? Were they?
Yeah. So in the original EU, it does the logical thing of Return the Jedi ended with the destruction of the second Death Star and the death of the Emperor and Darth Vader. And now the Empire is in disarray.
Yeah.
And so you've got all these Grand Moffs and Admirals fighting for control of the Empire.
They're kind of scattered.
Yeah, they've scattered. They've still got large fleets of Star Destroyers, and they've got armies of stormtroopers, but they're all kind of divided, trying to figure out who's in charge, what they should do next. Meanwhile, the Rebellion has now freed the galaxy and garnered enough support and has brought together enough systems
to kind of form a small democracy.
To get rid of the Empire and to form a small democracy, and they call it the New Republic. And that makes sense, right? You don't have to read any books to understand that. Yeah. That's kind of implied at the end of Return of the Jedi just by them winning.
Yeah.
And so the books take that forward, where they slowly push the Imperial. It's called the Imperial Remnant. They push it back. Eventually, they destroy it all, and the New Republic gains more and more until it, becomes full, and they restore peace to the galaxy until the next book, and then aliens come and destroy everything. But you know what I'm saying? It makes sense, right? And Force Awakens should have started where, even if they didn't take any of the EU books into consideration, it should have started with all that stuff happened. Now let's tell the story. Yeah.
There's a certain trajectory which it must have gone along.
Yeah. Also, in that time, Luke goes out and finds other Force-sensitive people, trains them, starts a new Jedi school. Luke and Leia have 3 children. Luke,
no, between them, not like.
I should say Han and Leia. Han and Leia have 3 children together. Luke and Mara have a son. They get trained as well and become Jedis, and that makes sense. Yeah. So the Force Awakens, even though it ignored all that stuff, it should have just started and been like, Here's the new Jedi school. Luke is the master. Here's a couple of grown-up Han Solo kids and Leia kids. And Leia and the Senate have restored the New Republic. Okay, where do we go now?
Yeah, exactly.
But instead, because J.J. Abrams, he's like, oh, it has to be a mystery box. We don't know who's who. We don't know what's what. And it raises so many questions that are never answered that have a ripple effect throughout the whole saga. And it ruins everything. It makes no sense.
Because I found it so very odd that after X amount of years had elapsed, they were basically on the same foot.
Yeah, in Force Awakens, the New Republic is never, like, I think it's mentioned once. It's just not mentioned. You don't know, like, where their army is, where their fleets of ships are. You don't know where their government is. There's a resistance, which is now, I guess, the rebellion. But why is that there if the New Republic...
Yeah.
Then you've got the First Order, who basically just seem to be the Empire, but a
fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, with a fresh coat of paint. But according to the movies, they're not in control of the galaxy, but they have free reign. They do whatever they want. Also, they have Starkiller Base, which is this huge planet-killing weapon. And it's like, well, how did they get that made if they don't run the galaxy anymore? Then in Last Jedi, nothing's explained again, and everything's rebooted again. And you're supposed to come to the conclusion that the First Order have taken over the galaxy and that the resistance has been pushed back. But it's like, that's not seen. And where was the New Republic at that time? And how big is the resistance? And why is the resistance even a thing? It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. And they never resolve it and they never explain it.
It very much makes it feel like then whatever happened at Return of the Jedi didn't matter.
Exactly. And that's the problem with the Disney movies, is it's a front, it's a spit in the eye of the original movies. It's like, well, why did any of this stuff happen if you're just going to reboot it and do whatever the hell you want? You know? If you read the books, there's some shit about how the New Republic rapidly demilitarized so that they didn't become the Empire, but then the First Order rose out of the ashes of the Empire and started building, and so Leia broke off from the New Republic and started the Resistance. I'm like, where was that in the movie?
Yeah.
But also, like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's been 30 years. You can't still be fighting the same fucking war.
No.
It's boring.
That's
just
right.
from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to make a point about it and develop that, you know, make a movies about politics, you know, like, that's boring.
Yeah, that's right.
In 30 years after Return of the Jedi in the original EU, they're already fucking doing so many weird shits with Yuuzhan Vong alien invaders. Like, the Imperial Remnant's not even a problem anymore. So, you know, if you are going to make a movie set 30 years after, like we said in the last couple episodes, you have to have a trajectory of where things went.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have like long scenes explaining. You don't have to have flashbacks. But you've got an opening crawl. You've got you've got Leia, who is a politician who can be in the inner workings of the New Republic. You've got Han, who can be in the inner workings of the military, the space aspect of the fleets. You've got other pilots. You've got Luke, who's part of the spiritual, I guess, side of the things. So you can explain it just easily. Couple lines of dialogue, couple of visual cues.
At the very least, because in the new trilogy, you see that Luke did kind of start a school and he had students. He had Kylo to a certain age.
Yeah.
So he must have been doing other stuff in that time as well, right? Like, he must have made changes to the galaxy. Or at least assisted in that, but
that's
it
the
seems
problem.
like nothing's happened.
That's the problem with J.J. Abrams and the new the Disney stuff. They didn't care. They didn't know. They didn't even think about it.
They didn't explain it. It's almost as bad as the time I try to get an explanation of what happens to Jesus after he returns, and then everyone gets really angry at me.
Yeah, but
you need the explanation.
It's like the missing years from when he's 10 to when he's 30. It's like no one talks about that. You know?
Yeah, he's wild years.
Because the way you guys obviously would rather have it, that makes a lot more sense with how the story would flow.
It's because we actually care.
Yeah. Exactly. And
I don't mean to sound like I'm gatekeeping or whatever.
No, we care, and also it writes itself because logistically, it's like, here's where Return of the Jedi end. What happens next? Alan, you've never read a Star Wars book in your life, I'm pretty sure.
I've read maybe one page.
Yeah. But you can say, at the end of Return of the Jedi, when they defeat the Empire, you could pretty much guess what happens next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Force Awakens skips 30 years, goes, nothing happened, and we're going to reboot everything. What?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's complete disregard for the legacy, the lore, all the
That's
stuff
right.
that people love. All the stuff that... The reason people love Star Wars, Disney threw that out the window. Even before Rian Johnson got his mitts on it.
Yeah.
And as you said, because you care. Like, if you're standing to make $1 billion in a film, should you not care a little bit?
But that's the thing, is they know how to market it, and it's got the Star Wars name, so it's brand recognition out the wazoo.
Prints money, yeah.
Yeah, so it prints money, yeah. So it's like they don't have to care. Like they don't care about the story.
Also,
it's
another thing,
very clear.
Another important point about that is it's also important to know that for a lot of people who don't really care about Star Wars is a certain thing. It's a certain look, it's lightsabers, it's space battles. It's not necessarily what we talk about. Some people, it's not swashbuckling. It's funny androids and now dick jokes in space.
Yeah.
So that it's like what Star Wars means to the people Disney are trying to market to isn't necessarily what Star Wars means to us in the studio.
But I think what it means to them, like it's not even an argument of what it means to them, what it means to us. It's like they're coming at it from a purely cynical marketing point of view, and we're coming at it from like we want a good story and we want characters and we want, the lore. So when they should be... The only reason the Marvel movies are good is because Kevin Feige has that same passion that we do, where he's like, I want to tell the story, I love all the comic books. The reason all of other Disney, Star Wars especially, but Disney's, live action remakes and all that, the reason all those movies suck is because those are purely...
cash grabs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Kathleen Kennedy was a huge Star Wars nerd...
Loved the ebook, can you imagine?
Yeah, if she loved the EU, we'd be in a very different situation right now.
Yeah, instead, I guess she forgot they existed.
She's not. I don't think she's not interested in any of that. I don't think she actually.
No, I only say that because her quote. It's like, oh well, there's no books.
Yeah,
or anything.
no, exactly. But it's like I don't think. Most people of a certain age and most people who probably work in the industry just don't care about Star Wars.
Yeah,
and don't care about Star Wars books, especially.
Yeah, they're anything nerdier than Star Wars movies is Star Wars novels.
Yeah. So another idea I had is because Poe was a character who was originally meant to die, but they liked Oscar Isaac so much they brought him back from the dead at the end, and that put us in a pretty shitty situation where you've got this pointless character kind of waddling around, running around. They don't know what to do with any of the characters, but especially this guy. And I fucking love Oscar Isaac, don't get me wrong, but it's like he's got no reason being there. If anything, he should be a Wedge type character where you see him once a movie for like a minute. He should be the pilot we recognize. He's like the guy, But if you're going to have Poe there, again, because Force Awakens is so poorly written, it's like if all he had to do was get killed off, you should have just killed him off.
Yeah.
But why were you just going to kill him off anyway? Because, you had to get Finn to the planet. It's like, well, why couldn't Finn just steal a ship and crash land? If that's it's so poorly thought out and poorly written. But if you're going to have Poe there, have him be an important part, have him be an important character, develop him alongside Finn and Rey. And my solution, as boring as it is to make him a Solo.
Yeah.
Instead of Poe Dameron, he's Dameron Solo because it's a cooler name.
Yeah,
he's taken after his father, Han, by becoming a hotshot pilot.
Yeah.
And he's the leader of what I've called Devil Squadron, which is this new Republic's version of Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
The Rogue Squadron is no more because the Rebellion and New Republic have moved on. Yeah. Wedge has retired. Peace has been restored to the galaxy. But just in case... maybe Leia has got her son and some fighter pilots to have like a emergency squad.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of drills. They're like Top Gun. They're like the
they investigate anomalous reports.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like they're like her secret, not secret, but her special squad of fighters. Yeah, generally they don't need to do a lot because peace has been restored to the galaxy. The New Republic fighters are now like small, kind of TIE Fighter-esque, very, the whole point of TIE Fighters is that they're short range and you can make a lot of them and they're all uniform and you can fit a lot of them into a Star Destroyer.
Yep.
now you've got the New Republic. It's like, well, they're doing the same kind of thing. Instead of big X-Wings and Y-Wings, which the Rebellion kind of had to use, it's like now they're just got a uniform, small, one-man, short-range fighter. So they're not very special. But the Devil Squadron have their own special X-Wings. All blacked out with red markings. Fucking cool.
Yeah.
So you keep that special, I remember X-Wings kind of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But it's for a reason. And if your character who is leading that squad is tied to the rest of the crew and is tied to the original trilogy characters. And you develop him along the way. And, like, you know, again, like when, like you said, Leia sends him and his team on special missions. And if depending on what you're doing with Kylo, that could be his brother.
Yeah.
Then you could have some tension there. But then that's probably taking too much time away from Finn and Rey. So that's probably overcomplicating it. So Kylo should be non-related to anyone. But I think that's interesting. So, like, you know, Han and Leia have a son. And, you know, maybe Rey is a Skywalker. So Luke has a daughter and he's training her. And then have Finn come in and get trained. And that develops a romance with Rey. And, you know, it's pretty simple. You can add more. You can add more kids. You know, you can have, like I said, you can have a Ben Skywalker.
Yeah.
You can have another. You know, you can have maybe if you're going to pass the torch from, you know, Luke to the new Jedi, you could also pass the torch from Han to his son.
Yeah.
The fighter pilot. Also, depending on how far you want to go, you could have Leia pass the torch to her daughter, another character.
That'd be interesting.
Who could be maybe like a politician character.
Yeah, I was thinking like...
And then that way you have a link back to the New Republic goings on.
That would also help a lot with intrigue plots as well. So if she's trained in the Force, this daughter, she might be able to pick up like...
that would be cool too.
What do you call it? Subterfuge.
Depending if the Han's son and daughter were Force sensitive or if they were trained with Luke or not, it'll be interesting. It's like maybe they did get trained and now they've gone back to do maybe less Jedi-y stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, they still have some Jedi abilities. That would be fun.
Yeah. Don't necessarily have to have lightsabers.
No.
But like a politician who can kind of not telepathic, but they can sense when someone's lying.
Empathic, yeah.
Yeah, like that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting, yeah. And then that way, you have all the 3 original trilogy characters plus Lando and Chewie, and then you have like the 3 or 4 new characters, a couple of which who are related, a couple of which aren't, and they both kind of work together. But really, the new characters are the ones we're focusing on. Yeah. The older characters are supporting. That's right. And that makes sense. Yeah. And you don't need to do what the Disney did and try to kill everyone off and, you know, make everyone grumpy and, you know, push all the old characters out of the way. But you also don't have to have them be the main characters anymore. That's right. Because, it's 30 years later and we've moved on and kids have moved on as well. And you know,
not everyone's so excited to see Mark Hamill as you and me.
Yeah, so, but it makes sense for, well, if you're not going to have Mark Hamill be the hero of the galaxy, have his daughter be the hero of the galaxy, he's the Obi-Wan figure.
Because, of course.
Because that makes sense. It writes itself.
Yeah, who else would it be?
Yeah. Creed, again, like we always talk about. Creed, you got the young, hot guy, you know, kids love him, but who's he being trained by? The classic old character. Yeah. Same with Cobra Kai. You've got all the young, new characters. Who are they being trained by?
The old characters.
The old characters. Some of them are related, some of them are not.
Yeah, that's it.
But at the end of the day...
It's funny. Cobra Kai is almost a 1-to-1, isn't it?
Dude, I remember we were watching Cobra Kai at your place, and I was just like, it's so simple. Even the old Karate Kid movies, because it's that classic old wise mentor training.
Comes out of retirement to
the young, the young, naive, hot-headed, and it's like he develops, and it's like I said earlier in the episode, like you can remake any good movie and put a Star Wars spin on it.
That's it.
As long as the story and characters are good, that's the important part. So, remaking Karate Kid would be so easy because Mr. Miyagi is Luke. Yeah. And Daniel-san is Rey. Yeah. And just play with that a bit. And Kylo is Johnny. Yeah. There you go. And then if you want to do Cobra Kai, which maybe keeps more in line with Force Awakens being like the 30 years later kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then you do, like Luke is Daniel's son, and maybe Kylo is Johnny. And it's like, old rivals.
Yeah.
And, Rey is it Samantha was Daniel's daughter in Cobra Kai, I think?
I think that's so.
It. And then there's Miguel, so he can be Finn. Finn can be Miguel. And then was it Robbie was Johnny's
son. Yeah.
So Finn could be Robbie, and Miguel could be Ben Skywalker.
Yeah.
Writes itself.
It's almost 1-to-1.
Send us a check.
It's almost 1-to-1. It's crazy.
Bloody hell. Also, like Billy Lord, Carrie Fisher's daughter, like cameoed in all 3 new movies. Depending on how the trilogy went, like it would be cool if she played the daughter character.
Yeah.
And actually played her mother's daughter. Like that would be fun. Also, this is a dumb idea. I'm just throwing it out there. It would be interesting if, because we debated a lot about how dumb it was at the end of Rise of Skywalker, how Rey takes Skywalker's name, and it was just a token way to say, oh, look, we're tying it into the old saga.
It was identity theft.
I saw a comic after Rise of Skywalker was released, and it was taking the piss out at the end of the film.
Yeah.
But instead of saying Rey Skywalker, she goes
Rey Star Wars.
Rey Star Wars.
You mentioned it. Yeah. So it's like we talked about that, and that's dumb. And I talked about how, it would be maybe make a bit more sense for Kylo to take that name, even though it doesn't really make sense. But at least that comes with his redemption arc, which was rushed and not. But if you are going to, develop this world properly, like the way we are, and develop these movies properly, it would be interesting if Finn, being a child soldier with no name, took the Skywalker name at the end of the trilogy when he marries Rey Skywalker and takes her name.
That'd be cool.
So
also subvert a little.
Yeah, a kid who has grown up with no name and a number.
Yeah,
is given a name by by his new family. Develops a relationship with Rey Skywalker over the 3 movies.
Yeah,
and the end of the new trilogy could end with Finn and Rey's wedding.
Yeah.
And he takes her name. I know it's cheesy as fucking kind of silly.
No. I agree with it. But that's the thing. I agree with it.
Yeah, and it kind of fits into kind of the sappy nature of Star Wars in a way, where it's like instead of ending the movie with the Ewok celebration, you end with a wedding.
Could have a little Ewok.
He can be the ring bearer would be R2, obviously, like when Luke gets married to Mara. Oh, this is another problem, which again, I know it doesn't write itself as much as we like to say, and it's very complex. But you know how we're hashing it out, and we've been talking for a couple hours, and we'll talk for a bit more. J.J. Abrams 100% didn't do this.
No,
he said he and Lawrence Kasdan say they did, but look at the end result.
Yeah, no, they didn't think about shit.
Yeah, so it's like anyway, like you have to think about.
At least they thought more than Ryan did.
What I like was one. Arguably, Callum, you let me know. Arguably, I don't think I'm alone in saying Mara Jade is one of the best EU characters.
So I actually don't know a whole lot about her.
Yeah,
because she was
she's popular at least.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she's massively popular.
Yeah.
I remember when they dropped the EU books and after Force Awakens came out, a whole lot of people were upset she wasn't in it.
Yeah,
because from what I understand,
she kind of goes away for a while.
Yeah, but her arc was really interesting because if I'm correct, she was like a roguey type character. Because she was introduced when I was reading it, but I didn't get to the part where they got married.
Yeah,
because I think that was in a comic or something.
That was Union. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never got to that one.
That comes later, but originally she was called the Emperor's Hand.
Yeah.
So she was the Emperor's force-sensitive assassin.
Yeah, it's all coming back.
Yeah, he would send her out on covert missions to assassinate people.
She was in a cantina, right?
I think so.
I think they kind of retconned.
Oh no, yeah, she was at Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
So the Emperor sent her to Jabba's palace as like one of the dancers to kill Luke.
Yeah.
But he escaped and couldn't, fell into the Rancor kit, couldn't get. Obviously she wasn't there. They rewrote that in. But anyway, the idea of the Emperor having an assassin whose sole job is to kill Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And he has so infected her mind with hate of Luke. And as the books go on, she kind of has to by situation team up with Luke.
Yeah.
Eventually realizes he's not such a bad guy and the Emperor was taking advantage of her.
Yeah.
She's force sensitive. Luke kind of trains her to be a Jedi. They fall in love and they get married and have a son.
Yeah. And she was also iconic. Like,
Yeah.
her look, the appearance was kind of iconic.
Badass.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a cool character. Now, if you're going to skip 30 years and you're going to erase the EU, but you're still going to have Luke have a child, then you have to have a mother character or Luke's wife. Now, again, like, I understand why they got rid of the EU. They didn't want to be beholden to that. They didn't want to have to explain all those books for people who haven't read them.
Yeah.
Like, it's too complex. But it would be cool if Mara Jade, they kept that character, you know. Or, alternatively, I thought it might be easier to do like a sort of retcon, like do an original character who's basically Mara Jade, but not.
Yeah, I
thing.
agree.
I think that would be understandable.
Not a placeholder, but yeah.
Alternatively, I know female representation in Star Wars movies hasn't always been great, but alternatively, like you could just start the movie where she's already died. I know that's kind of but I'm like that at least gets rid of a character who. I mean, I know. Then that makes her only use was to have a child, but just for the ease of storytelling, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you've already got Finn, Rey, Poe, Kylo.
You've got a lot of cast members.
You've already got Han, Leia, and Luke, and then all the other new characters you have to introduce. You know, or alternatively, if she's around, she should be like with Luke, like. Dual masters. Like there's two masters now. But also, because it's been 30 years, you have to explain so much, you'd have to do a really good job of explaining, well, she was force sensitive, he met her, he trained her, and they fell in love and had a kid, and now they run the school together kind of thing.
Yeah.
That also might work, because then she can stay in the school kind of area, and he can go off and do adventures, and Rey can come and go, and, you know.
Yeah.
So many options that Disney didn't even think about.
No, that's right.
Fuck Disney.
Yeah, fuck Disney. Fuck China.
Yeah. Also, another action scene I thought would be cool was if you're going to change The Force Awakens and not end it with the Starkiller Base crap, you have to end it with Luke confronting his old student, Kylo, and them fighting. But you also don't want to take the story away from Rey and Finn, the new characters. So maybe having Rey and Finn fight Kylo and Luke be in a supporting role. And I think what would be cool is if, like, I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but it's like they find Kylo's hidden base where the Knights of Ren train or whatever, and the New Republic is sending their fleet to bombard it with laser fire from orbit. And Luke is like, no, don't do that. Don't destroy this school. Like, I know we don't agree with the Knights of Ren, but come on.
They're still force sensitive,
Yeah, and it's like, you'll kill all these people. You'll destroy, maybe it's an old Jedi temple.
Yeah, or the cultural... and
he's pleading with the Admiral or whoever, and the Admiral's like, no. And then Leia's like in the Senate arguing about... not full prequel bullshit, but a short scene of her being like, look, you can't, I know the Knights of Ren and the First Order are no good, but you can't go around. And then maybe if you really want, then you can introduce the idea of the Resistance and carry that into the second movie, but that's a bit, too much. But anyway, they could be bombarding the Knights of Ren school, and Rey and Finn and Kylo are fighting with lightsabers or whatever, and things are exploding and there's debris everywhere. And if you don't want to take the spotlight away, you can have Luke like using the Force to shield people from debris, to help their students escape, to help Rey. Rey could be fighting Kylo and a rock could almost fall on her, and Luke stops it. Have him be involved, but he's not the centerpiece anymore.
No, because
I agree, we need new characters to move forward. I'm not a guy who's like, oh, we should just have Luke. Like, I understand why. So that would be interesting.
How do you feel, Alan?
Well,
Alan's done.
I believe that their car talk.
Alan's done with it. Yeah, Alan's done with us. He's leaving us now.
Leaving the Cool Kids Club.
Yeah, sure. Look, nothing's cooler than Star Wars.
Hey, man.
Yes.
Star Wars is wicked awesome.
It is. Which is why, 90% of the coverage you've done has been shitting on
Negative,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, this is probably our most positive Star Wars episode because we're talking about actual good ideas.
It's true. And even then, we've done a fair amount of
complaining. Yeah. Another thing, like, it's such a shame. I think we talked about this. It's such a shame we never got to see the original characters back together again.
Yeah.
Like, the
what
core
a
group.
waste.
Like, it's not about nostalgia. It's not about member. It's like, it makes sense. You start the movie, Han and Leia are married. Luke's off doing his Jedi thing, but he goes to visit them in the Senate, whatever.
Yep.
Lando's off doing his, wild adventures. Maybe he started a casino or a new mining operation like he does in the EU. He's doing his own thing, but he's involved, when shit hits the fan, he's there.
Yep.
Chewie, of course, is always around,
How long do Chewbacca's live?
Wookiees have pretty long lifespan.
I think, Chewbacca is canonically 200 years old, roughly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long Wookiees live
I'm going to Google it.
altogether, but at least a few hundred years. Actually, that brings up another point, which I don't know if we should talk about it now, but Chewie's death.
Yeah.
So in the EU, this is a kind of divisive...
So, the average lifespan of a Wookiee is approximately 400 years.
Okay, so he's
Middle-aged.
Middle-aged.
Sorry, James, continue.
That's all right. So in the EU, in the books, about 25 years roughly, maybe 20 years after Return of the Jedi, Luke's established his new Jedi school, the New Republic is established, and the Empire has been completely eradicated. Han and Leia's children, Jason, Jaina, and Anakin, have all grown up and are students of Luke and are all Jedis in their own right. I don't know if Ben Skywalker has been born at this point. He might be very young. Can't remember. But anyway, now that they've gotten rid of the Empire, the Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and the Star Wars, the authors, they needed a new big villain. So what they did was they came up with the idea of there's this alien race called the Yuzon Vong who are from outside of known space.
Yeah.
They're from outside the charted space. And they come in, they try to invade, and they're like ruthless warriors who self-mutilate and who torture people and who just destroy worlds. And it's kind of whatever. Some people don't like it, some people do. It's a bit...
There's some cool ideas.
Yeah.
There's also some silly ideas.
Yeah,
it's a grab bag.
It doesn't really feel like Star Wars, but also at this point, I think it was good to kind of make something new and refreshing.
Shake things up, yeah.
Yeah. Especially like we've been talking, if Force Awakens just started 30 years, it's like, oh, the Empire's still around. That would be pretty boring. And they kind of did that with the First Order. So the Yuzon Vong, they're an interesting idea because they're a new villain. Anyway, I think it's the first book in this storyline.
Yeah, I think it's Vector Prime.
Vector Prime, which these books go for there's 25, 30 of them. They go forever. And there's there's all this, Han's son turns to the dark side and all this crazy shit happens. Anyway, there's this bit where I think the Yuzon Vong are invading a planet and it's on the verge of destruction. And the Millennium Falcon comes and Anakin, Han's youngest son, is trying to get as many people as they can onto the Millennium Falcon. And Han's, trying to get many, and Chewbacca's carrying people on. Things are blowing up. And eventually I think Anakin gets trapped somewhere. So Chewbacca goes and saves him and puts him on the Millennium Falcon just as it leaves because it's packed with people. And basically... I think, is it a moon crashing into the planet?
It is a moon.
So a moon is crashing into this planet, and just as the Millennium Falcon leaves with all the survivors, and Chewie roars. He's like, fuck you, moon. And
literally.
And the moon smashes into the planet and explodes.
And that's how Chewie dies.
A lot of people didn't like that. I think if a mighty Wookiee warrior is going to die, that's pretty fucking cool.
Look, it is... On one hand, it's metal.
Yeah, it's metal as fuck.
But on the other hand, alright, Salvatore, man, come on.
Look, I've always been... Look, as much as I love Chewie, he's a character who... He has a limited... things he can do. You can't really develop him that much. He's an extension of Han, in a way.
Yeah.
He's like Han's... droid or Han's
body man.
Han's pet, Han's bodyguard almost, You can't do a lot with him, and I think the new movies sort of illustrated that, where Chewie did nothing.
No, he
Like-
was very idle.
Yeah, like if you're going to have him there, I think when Han died in Force Awakens, Chewie should have died as well. Like he should have
Yeah.
sacrificed himself to save Rey or something, you know? Like you should have just gotten rid of both those characters, which I'll talk about a bit later. But anyway, like that was divisive among fans at the time.
Yeah.
Alum's leaving us now. He's had enough of us, our crap.
I have. Can't take it anymore.
All right.
No, but I'll catch you guys later.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Listen to Sunrise Arcade. So yeah, like it was divisive among fans at the time, and I understand why.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it makes sense, and it's pretty metal.
Yeah, definitely.
And as I said before, I thought one of my ideas was if the New Republic is bombarding a planet, and Luke and Rey and Finn and Kylo are like fighting and whatever, and so I was like, maybe they could work that in somehow, where to save the people on the planet from the New Republic's going nuts, because the New Republic is supposed to represent peace and goodwill.
Yeah.
Han and Chewie sacrifice themselves in some way to save all the people.
Yeah.
And similarly, they could like pack the Millennium Falcon full of people and just escape in the nick of time, and Han and Chewie could go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
As much as I fucking hate it, if you're going to do that lightspeed kamikaze shit, which I don't like and you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying you should. If you are going to do
At
it,
least make it Chewy.
imagine Chewie and Han in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
They line it up with the enemy's super weapon or whatever.
And then bam.
Both their hands together on top of each other. Push that little lever.
Sit straight through.
You see those light streaks of the hyperspace, and it boom.
Yeah.
I'll be fucking crying in the cinema, man. Fucking incredible. Send us a check.
Yeah, I don't understand why they made it Laura Dern, because...
Yeah, rando Laura
I'm
Dern.
sorry, hold her, because I almost forgot her name, because who cares?
Fucking who cares?
Like, she's in it for like, what?
Fairy floss head.
She's like 30 minutes or something in the film, and then she's like...
They blow up Admiral Akbar out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then they're like, here's a new character. And
who
then
no one gives a shit about.
Then they blow her up out of nowhere
Yeah.
while fucking Leia's in a coma for the whole movie. I was like, what the fuck? At least if Leia did it, there would be some sort of emotional, she sacrificed herself to save the resistance.
Yeah.
It's like, but who's this Holdo lady? What the fuck?
Yeah, like you said, your idea is much more poignant.
Yeah.
Especially if there's some monologue as well. It's like, well, how much more can we contribute? We're not young men anymore.
Exactly.
It's not, at what point does it stop being your fight kind of mentality?
Yeah. Also, in this version, like we're getting rid of Han and Chewie, who are connected so completely that I don't think you can separate them. But also, you're getting rid of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Which I love the Millennium Falcon. I don't want it to be destroyed. But as we've seen with the new movies, the more they bring that back, the more boring it gets.
Oh, yeah, I hate
the more
it, yeah.
soulless it feels when that flies past. And so getting rid of all three of those things, it's like now we have room for the new characters, while also respectfully sending off
the old guard.
Old guard.
The Millennium Falcon's turned into just more like, it's just like a brand thing.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's like, look everyone, it's the Millennium Falcon.
That's one of the things I hate about Solo is that they made the Millennium Falcon feel so much like a marketing ploy.
Like, don't get me wrong. If I saw a reasonably priced Millennium Falcon, like I said, I'm fucking buying it. But...
Oh, man. I love the Millennium Falcon.
But still... Like, you have to introduce new ships.
Also, unlike Rian Johnson, if you're going to do something like this, you do it in service of the story and characters.
Exactly.
You don't do it to be a middle finger to kick fans in the balls.
Yeah, exactly.
You do it to further the story and characters. If I was doing it, I would do it so it furthers the resolve of the other characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And it sends off old characters in the most heroic way possible by saving an entire planet of people.
Yeah.
What a better way to send off Han and Chewie than saving a billion people?
Yeah, sacrifice.
Like, it writes itself.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Disney. Fuck you, J.J. Abrams. Fuck you, Rian Johnson. Fuck you, Kathleen Kennedy. Fuck China. Free Hong Kong. Australia's on fire. Scott Morrison, you fuckhead.
Please resign.
Resign. Do not vote Liberal. Fuck. So pissed off right now.
For Greens. I'm sorry, everyone.
So, anywho, Also, seeing all the characters together, the original characters together again, like I said last week, it's because it's not nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's because they're the main characters of Star Wars.
That's right.
They would all be working together. They would all be in the same places.
I kind of find it... I always found it kind of strange, and I understand they didn't think at all with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But I always found it kind of strange that the ties that were bound in the original trilogy were so easily broken in the sequels. So, Han and Leia, I can understand maybe they had marriage problems, whatever.
Yeah, but why not develop that over the 3 new movies if you're not going to show
but
what
also,
happened?
I understand Han is a detached kind of guy. He's, Mr. Roguish, I don't care kind of guy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he's always there. He always saves. He always cares.
This actually brings up a good point. You know how we were talking about how the Disney movies negate and make the original trilogy unnecessary. Yeah. It's like they're trying to wipe it from the slate. Having Han and Leia break up and having Han just go off and be a smuggler again negates the romance in Empire Strikes Back. The whole point of that movie was them falling in love and one of the greatest Star Wars moments, I love you, I know.
Iconic.
Now, 30 years later, nah, that didn't last, sorry.
Yeah. So
and I know they're doing, Kylo's turned to the dark side, push them farther apart, but they do not develop that. Again, if you're going to do that, they're using these characters. We talked about this last week. They're using the old characters as gimmicks.
Yeah.
Have Carrie Fisher, have Leia. Don't leave her till the last movie.
That's it.
Have her in the first movie talking with Kylo.
That's it. Yeah.
I know they had the Han and Kylo moment, but don't tell me that was for character development. That was purely so J.J. Abrams could have a shock moment where he kills Han off. Harrison Ford probably didn't want to do more than one movie.
Yeah.
Also, J.J. Abrams wanted to, again, remake A New Hope by having the mentor character die, like the way Obi-Wan does.
Yeah.
But again, this is how stupid they are. They gave the mentor character to Han instead of Luke.
Yeah, so dumb.
If you're going to have an Obi-Wan character in your new trilogy,
make it a Jedi.
Why the fuck would you not make it Luke?
That's it.
Oh, but they're doing a thing where it's the first movie's Han's movie, second movie's Luke's movie. Fuck you. They're characters. They're living people who have lives. Yeah. They're not gimmicks for you to whip out to say, hey, remember Luke? Oh, he's dead. Hey, remember Han? He's dead.
Which brings me to the point I was going to mention.
Yeah.
So I can understand that you can make an argument for them breaking up or whatever, but does that mean that the ties that bound Luke and Han were broken so easily? The ties that bound all the other characters, like Luke and Han, Leia and Luke. Are you telling me she doesn't know where Luke is?
Yeah.
I don't buy it for a minute.
Remember, she's so powerful now, she can Mary Poppins herself from the verge of death in the vacuum of space, but she can't feel her brother. And then, he cut himself off the Force.
No. But there's, like I say, bullshit. You think there's not one hour a week where they talk? You know what I mean?
But
encrypted. You could even say encrypted communications.
But even if he did cut himself off and Leia didn't see him, like we said, make that a part of the story of the overarching trilogy. Make Luke's shaken faith a part of his journey throughout the new movies. Yeah. Have his faith be renewed by the younger characters. I think one of the earlier Tuesday review episodes, we reviewed The Postman, Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
And there was a bit where they go to the Dam City. And Kevin Costner's character, all the people gather around him, and they're like, he's a postman. And the little kid comes out of the crowd, and he's like, what's a postman? And the kid's like, he's this guy. And I'm like, we said, that's a Jedi moment. There should have been a moment where Luke, his faith is shaken. He's like, I'm no longer a Jedi. I'm shutting down the school. He walks out into a crowd and Rey's like, stop, and someone's like, who's that? And he's like, that's Luke Skywalker, hero of the rebellion.
The
Jedi,
Luke Skywalker.
Jedi Knight.
Yeah, the Luke Skywalker.
And everyone's like, you saved my family, yada, yada, yada. Fucking send us a check. What the fuck? It's so obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I'm speechless as to the stupidity and utter disregard and cynical money-grubbing bullshit.
I mean, we've said it before, but it's like Disney's a machine. They don't really look at it. There are a lot of individuals who work at Disney.
Yeah.
But when the people making the choices, it's not really a choice that they make. It's a choice that they feel the market is trending towards.
We'll talk about this in another Tuesday Review episode in the future. But there was just news recently about Warner Brothers implementing an AI to basically tell them what's trending, what movies they should make, how they should make them. Like, it's this soulless...
Exactly.
Complete passion.
It takes filmmaking by committee to like a whole other ballpark.
Like I've talked about before, filmmaking is all about compromise. It's about art versus commerce.
Yeah.
But Disney and a lot of these studios now, and what we're getting with these big franchises, it's purely algorithm-driven, money-making marketing exercises.
Yeah.
There is no art, no creativity, no passion. And the only reason Marvel, like we said, it has any good is because of Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
Marvel would go to shit because Marvel has a lot of problems. And I'm starting to get a bit sick of their shit now. But the reason I keep going back is because you can tell they have passion for the characters and for the heroes. And they do generally a really good job. Another example I want to make is I really love Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. I've talked about it before. I think it's probably the best Star Trek series. And a few weeks ago, I watched the documentary about, like a retrospective documentary that just came out last year called What We Leave Behind. And what I loved about it, not only could you see, was it great seeing the cast back together and the passion they had for it, but there was a small segment laced throughout the documentary where some of the original writers came together and made like a pilot episode for a theoretical next season.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a fun exercise. They didn't really, it was just like a brainstorming session that they did on a whiteboard. But it was, you could tell when someone has a passion and a knowledge of a franchise.
It comes through.
It comes through. And they were like, well, it's 30 years later. It's kind of like a where are they now situation. And, they wrote up on the board, oh, well, Nog is a starship captain and Julian and Ezri are married and they're off doing a mission and Worf is an ambassador and yada, yada. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they have passion. And they did some, even though it was just a brainstorm and it was like a couple minute segment of this documentary, they did a couple of controversial things, you could say.
Yeah.
But they did them to further the story, and it was all theoretical, so it didn't really matter. But even if they did do them in a legit new season, and they actually made it, it makes more sense than what they did with Star Wars, which is just like have a wank and like we don't know what's going on. We have no passion or care for this. We just whatever.
It's funny to think about before Star Wars came out. Force Awakens, rather.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about it in such reverent tones. It's like all that you'd see interviews with Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, and they're like, oh, well, it's a big task for us to continue this legacy. Blah, and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, but we know now.
Yeah.
They didn't really care, or if they cared, they only cared about the biggest box office returns.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Which apparently was kind of related. Apparently, there's been a 91% drop rate in Rise of Skywalker's box office return.
But,
because it's not a good film.
Yeah, but Disney won't see that as, oh, no, we made a bad movie, maybe we should change up. They'll see that as, oh, people don't like Star Wars anymore, let's reboot
Star Wars
it again.
fatigue.
Or, it's like, oh, let's do, we have to double down on the nostalgia because maybe there was too much new stuff with Rey. That kind of, it's that cynical, manufactured, fake, money grubbing.
Well, as of right now, the Rotten Tomato score, which isn't indicative of anything, is 53%.
That's much too high.
Yeah, but it's also surprisingly low, considering the reception the other two movies got.
Well, last year I had that divisive nature of it, but generally the critics, but at this point people just don't give a fuck anymore. But it's like we've been talking about. It should never have gotten to this point. If they had just followed some sort of, again, like we said, they didn't have an idea of where the trilogy was going. Yeah. But even if they didn't, what we're talking about now in the studio, what we've been talking about for the last, however many episodes, it's like logical. Yeah. Where are they? 30 years later, where are they now?
There's a clear trajectory.
If you're gonna subvert things, that's fine, but do it in service of the story and characters. If you're gonna have nostalgia, do it in service. Creed, Cobra Kai, Dark Crystal,
That's it.
great shows, great movies, lots of nostalgia. But at the end of the day, new stuff, new for a new audience, new characters, taking it for the future, doing new interesting things. It makes sense. It writes itself.
That's right.
Yeah, like, just like, also the fact, like, you got an opening crawl. Utilize that.
I know. That's what I was going to mention before. I'm like, there's all this information they're leaving out. I'm like, instead we have, what did the Dead Speak?
Yeah. But like, just at the start of Force Awakens, it's all this vague bullshit. And it's like, no, you have to explain the gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I know you can't do it all in the opening crawl.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But
I can't believe they left out Palpatine, like, broadcasting a message off the screen.
Why wasn't that on screen? Again, like we always say with the new Disney movies, all the interesting stuff happens off screen because they don't care and they don't know what they're doing.
Like, if you don't want to show it on screen, right? I mean, you can even do what they did with the latest Alien film or whatever. Have a little mini thing you can upload to YouTube if you have to. If you don't want to include it in Rise of Skywalker.
It's just too little too late.
No, yeah.
But anyway, like the opening crawl, like we've talked about this before. Even some of the comic books, even some of the novels, and definitely the video games had opening crawls. It's an integral part of Star Wars. It ties into the pulpy kind of swashbuckling serial adventure. But also, it's a great tool to set up the world without having to do flashbacks and long dialogue scenes. And, you know, like I said, I've been reading some of the old EU books and comic books, you know, and what happens after Return of the Jedi. And it's so simple, you know. The rebellion has formed, you know, with the help of Leia Organa Solo, the rebellion has re-established the New Republic and returned the galaxy to peace.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, her brother, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, has traveled the galaxy looking for Force-sensitive people and has started a new Jedi school.
Yeah.
Then the last paragraph can be about, but a new threat arises when one of his former students attacks XYZ, and his daughter, Rey Skywalker, must spring to the challenge of her first mission as a Jedi.
Yeah. ...
Camera pans down, Millennium Falcon flies. Phew.
That's it.
Instead of Jakku and all this fucking Tatooine bullshit, you have a new planet, and there you go. And then Finn comes up, he's like, I'm part of the bad guys, but I'm going to pretend I'm a good guy, and, you know, like we said before.
You know what I always thought it was a shame that we didn't get to see in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Did you ever play any of the Mass Effect games?
I didn't. I heard the you know, they're pretty good.
They're the best.
Yeah. I think I should start playing, but I've got so much to play.
Oh, yeah, no. There's a community in Mass Effect of ships that are all connected together.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
it's not a planet, and it's not like a Star Destroyer, but it's a bunch of interconnected, independent ships, and you can walk to
like
and
a
from
space
them.
station almost.
Yeah, like a portable space station.
Yeah.
And like I always thought that'd be kind of a really good idea for like maybe like a bounty hunter commune or like a roguish kind of thing where all like the smugglers can kind of gather together.
Yeah.
I'm like, because that makes really interesting like action set piece,
cool.
like a zero gravity kind of.
Yeah.
You could have like, you know, space suited up, and you could have
that
like
would be. It's like maybe they go see Lando and they go to this like, you know, community of
or they have
separate.
They have to get information from some dodgy guy.
Yeah.
And that's where he is.
Yeah.
You know, like
that would be cool.
Like that's what annoys me with the new movies. It's always a new planet. It's either a new planet or a big Star Destroyer.
But in the new movies, the new planet is always just reminiscent of a planet we've already seen.
Yeah.
Not only in visuals, but like what they're doing there.
Yeah.
Jakku is just Tatooine because the main character is living there and wants to get off.
Yeah.
You know, the forest planet with the rebel base is just Yavin because that's where the rebel base was.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not just they look the same. Of course, a lot of planets would look the same. That makes sense. There's only so many environments you can different environments you can have. But it's like they're doing the same things story-wise and location-wise. Like that's lazy. That's member berry bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, do something new, do something different. You can have a desert planet, but we've already seen that. So how can we make it different? What haven't we seen? The prequels, as much as they suck, have some cool new planets. What can we do different? Again, Star Wars is limiting in a fashion because you don't want to go full like crazy, like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the purple planet with goobly goos. You know, you don't want to have a Dr. Zeus kind of
Yeah.
thing going on. But what's an environment we haven't seen before? Sullust, the planet in Star Wars, hasn't really been seen outside of video games and comic books. But it's like a volcano planet, but not a volcano planet like in Revenge of the Sith. It's like you know, this like sulfur, like you know, like those black sand beaches that you see, like all the little black pebbles. It's like that. Why not have an action scene set there?
That's cool. Yeah,
That's interesting. That's new. Then there are places on Earth that look like that, so you can go there and film. Instead of Jakku, one of my ideas was the planet Gaul, which in the expanded universe and the video games, it's like the canyon planet. So it looks like Tatooine because it's deserty, but it's like the surface of the planet is so low, and that all the settlements are on tops of like these high canyons. And so, like, basically, if you look down in the canyon, it's just an endless
abyss.
Yeah, abyss. And the core of the planet is all the way at the bottom, basically. So it's like I know it kind of sounds silly when I try to explain it.
It's science fiction.
It's the canyon planet where it's just like, and all the settlements have like bridges and stuff. It's really cool. And I thought it'd be cool if you start the movie instead of on Jakku with, you know, Rey and Finn trying to escape the First Order, you know, and BB-8. It's like, why not have on Planet Gaul, where they have to, you know, escape the First Order or they're looking for something. But like I said last week, creative new action scenes. What are we going to do that we haven't done before? Well, you're on a cliff planet. You can't go up and down very easily with a ship because it's too narrow. You can't walk up and down, obviously, for obvious reasons. Jetpacks.
Yeah.
So you get this cool vertical action scene where it's like they shoot up, you know, and they land on a platform and then they shoot up to the next platform. It's like almost like a platforming game where you're jumping up, you know, and there's like guys. Don't go too crazy with it. Don't have 100 CGI guys. Have Rey on wires with a jetpack, pull her up, and she lands. Have a First Order guy, Kylo Ren, whoever, pull her up, you know, and he's chasing her, you know, and it's like practical, you know.
That's it.
It'd be really cool. And you get some sort of vertical action you haven't really seen before. You use jetpacks, which, you know, we've seen, you know, in the cartoons and Mandalorian and stuff, but not really in the main movies, except for like Boba Fett and Jango Fett, whatever. You know, utilize that stuff. Yeah. Also, I thought it'd be cool, like, if you're going to do, like I said, you know, like a 3 or 4 way lightsaber fight with some of the students and some of Kylo's students, you know, have you know, some of the students use lightsabers, some of the students don't. Like I said, carrying a blaster and a lightsaber at the same time would add another layer to the action. Also, like, I think using the Force in a sort of, if a character was stuck without a weapon and in a dark place, and it's like using the Force to see your surroundings.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
Using that to your advantage.
To feel your surroundings.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that bit in Spider-Man Far From Home where Mysterio has all those illusions going on.
Yeah.
But Peter, like, has his spider sense. He's like, you can't trick me anymore. And then he finds...
you mean the Peter Tinkle.
The Peter Tinkle, that's right. And then he finds where Mysterio is and, like, punches through his illusion. I think that would be a cool action scene for Star Wars because, obviously, the Force, it makes sense. So have Rey going through a dark cave. She's dropped her lightsaber. Oh, no, she doesn't have a light. Oh, the bad guys are coming to get her. She can't see. She stops. She takes a breath. She remembers what her father taught her or Luke or whoever. And all of a sudden, she can, like, see her surroundings or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how you show that visually without, like, brightening up the room. But, like, you could just, you know, she could just dodge their attacks and you don't even have to see her point of view.
Exactly.
You just know she's now tied into the Force.
She's feeling her environment. Like, she can know where things are because the Force connects everything.
Yeah. Also, you know, sticking with Rey for a bit, you know, we've talked about how she's a non-character. She's boring. You know, she's, you know, Superman and all that. We've talked at that to death. But it's like having... You know, and I talked about how last week, how, you know, it's not a problem that she's powerful. It's more a problem that she's just perfect and nothing go wrong for her. And that she's not developed in any meaningful way.
Yeah, she hasn't earned her powers. There's been no trials for her to overcome.
Yeah. And also, but as a character, she hasn't learned anything.
Yeah.
She's just there because they need a main character. She's Rey protagonist, you know. She's Rey Star Wars, like you said, like you were joking. But it's like, I was thinking about this. I've been watching His Dark Materials on HBO, which is really good. And, The Witcher as well. And these are newer examples, but this goes back through probably all of fantasy and sci-fi and legends and Greek mythology and whatever, is the powerful child character. It's cliche as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
The young girl, in this case, Ciri from The Witcher or Lyra from His Dark Materials. Young girls with magical powers who, are prophesized to be great warriors or whatever, and the bad guys are after them, and the hero has to help them. It's cliche as fuck. Harry Potter as well, Just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's bad, and if you execute it well, we talked about this Dark Crystal, full of fantasy cliches.
Yeah, cheesiest fucking TV there is,
but one of the best shows, one of the best, most exciting, most fun experiences we all had.
Pure fantasy.
Yeah. And so having Rey being like, oh, she's a super powerful. Why is she so powerful? I don't know. She's part of she's force, sensitive, and no one's trained her, but she knows all this. That's not a problem. But like Ciri, like Lyra, like Harry Potter, like all these other characters, you have to develop. They're still afraid. They still need help. They still have trials, both physical and mental. They need help along the way from other people. And eventually they need someone to shape them and take them under their wing and teach them, That is the problem with Rey. Is that...
I agree with you, but I also disagree slightly in that I think it is a problem that she already knows everything.
But that's that's a problem. But if you are going to do it...
There are better ways to do it, yeah.
This is the better way to do it, which is the way it's been done in fantasy and sci-fi for ages, which is, yes, you can have the child of prophecy who's all-powerful, but they still have to be a character who's complex and well-developed and who has to go through a journey.
Yeah, of course. The problem is she's already overcome the trials that a better written character would have to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't start that journey towards the end.
Yeah. You don't start The Witcher with Ciri just blasting fools out of her castle.
Yeah,
because then the series would end after episode 1.
That's right.
But you get Force Awakens, and halfway through the movie, she hears the word Force, and all of a sudden, she's just blasting fools out of the base, and then Finn and Han come to save her, and she's like, I don't need saving, sorry. And then it's like the end of the movie, and it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said,
also, we talked about this before, I think. People mistake simplicity for being bad.
Yeah. But I think it's also kind of, it ties into the prequel problems where, like, the Force is super important to a Jedi.
And also, like, the Force is now
a video game power.
A wizard kind of fantasy kind of thing. Like, now it's just, I can cast a spell with my hand and do whatever I want because the writer needs me to do that at that specific point.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas before, it was a specific set of telekinesis type powers.
Yeah.
And again, that was probably because of technical limitations.
Yeah, but it worked so well.
It worked, and it had weight to it. And now it's just gotten silly where you can just click your fingers and you're... Yeah. Like I always say, they're gods now.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it removes a lot of...
Yeah, I think I can speak for both of us more or less when I say that one of the big changes we would make in any original Star Wars story would be to really tone down the Jedi. No, I'm talking about like...
in terms of powers?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in terms of powers, I would keep it simple.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything we saw in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
If you want to add new powers, be careful.
Yeah. There's no
question why you're adding those new powers.
There's no real reason to add new powers because
like when J.J. Abrams introduced the Force healing, it's like he wasn't doing that because like this is an important thing for Star Wars and for this character. He's like, I need a quick fix.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's the problem with it. It's like Rian Johnson, like Leia cures herself of the vacuum of space and pulls herself back into the ship. Yeah, and so he's just doing it because he can and because he's like, haha.
Yeah, I mean,
question why are you introducing those powers?
I mean, I think I was telling you a while ago we were talking about Star Wars. How would we fix Star Wars off air? And I was like, well, I was telling you my own personal, what I would do with it.
Yeah.
And I said that, I mean, if you want, we can go into it now.
Yeah, go until...
So in this masturbatory Star Wars fanfiction that I have in my head, it would start like, I don't know if I would keep Luke Skywalker or not. There's always the temptation to just set it 100 years in the future, so you don't have to worry about any of that.
This is an interesting question. Are you making Episode 7 the continuation of the Skywalker saga, or are you making a movie set after Return of the Jedi that's not? That's part of the Sky. So that's not Episode 7.
That's kind of like saga. So it's kind of there are pros and cons, right?
Yeah, if you're making Episode 7 the continuation of the Skywalker saga,
you have to have
Luke, Leia, Han.
Yeah, no, they have to be there. But it's like, but when you include those characters, that's also extra weight you have to bear, because you suddenly have to take into consideration, like the EU, the trajectory they went on.
Yeah.
But if you have a separate story, there's still that pressure there, but you're not bound by the same.
Definitely, I think the further you move away from that, the more freedom you have to tell.
So you could, in this, like I said, I'm not haven't decided yet whether or not Luke would be in there.
Yeah.
But for sake of argument, we'll just say he is.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be. He would be a supportive character, not one of the main characters.
Yeah.
The main Jedi, so to speak, would be, of course, Keanu Reeves. You all know what's coming. Who else is there?
Oh, God.
And he would be a mature-aged student, not found by Luke as a child.
Yeah.
Just some dude Luke picked up along his journeys.
Yeah.
And he would be like the master of that temple, because Luke's like, well, I'm kind of old now. I've already taught. Because keep in mind, it's been years since Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So he's already taught a whole generation of students.
Keanu could have been young when he was first trained by Luke, but now Luke is gone and Keanu's
or a similar
older.
age.
Yeah.
And so Luke's like, well, I'm going to go and do whatever it is that Luke needs to do.
I'm saying it depends. If Luke is in this story, Keanu is around that age at the time Luke is alive. If Luke is gone by this point in the story, Keanu was younger when he was trained by Luke.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Now he's older and Luke's gone. Yeah.
Like, you can decide which of that's better, like,
take
whatever.
a pick,
yeah. But anyway, Keanu Reeves is in charge of the temple. The character could literally be called Keanu Reeves because he's ageless.
Keanu's
kind of a Jedi
Star Warsy name.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll get to the point. The whole crux of the story isn't about the Empire or about a star-killing weapon.
Yeah.
It's just an Indiana Jones-esque adventure through space. Yeah. Which revolves around Tom Holland's character. That kind of young, brash, kind of, naive, ready for adventure, kind of naive kid. Yeah. Essentially, he's not a Jedi Knight, but he's not really a Padawan. He's in that position between. Yeah. Much like Anakin, kind of, in like Battle of the Clones or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, there's an old student has gone missing. Mm-hmm. And the search is to get to that student. Now, the thing that interests me is because there's not a lot of Jedis, and not all of them are trained very well, or some of them have strong in different areas. I think it'd be really cool if they hired Mandalorians as bodyguards.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because it's like, if you have a lightsaber, you're still only one guy.
Yeah.
And
especially if you're not like fully trained or...
Yeah, you're not like Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, ready to... hand it to motherfuckers. You're Tom Holland. You're like a 20-something kind of... He wasn't like... But this is 30 years after, or however many years after Return of the Jedi. So they haven't really known like that much war. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not like trial by fire. They're just kids. Yeah. So he hires a Mandalorian, which, could be a lady, love interest, etc. Who knows? But essentially, it's a swashbuckling adventure through space. Yeah. And maybe Keanu Reeves is like, maybe there's something dangerous. He still doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah. Maybe I have to kind of go and get him to stop what he's doing. Yeah. But the whole crux is an ex-student maybe finds some type of bad dark Jedi relic. Yeah. Which not turns him into a Sith, but corrupts him. Mm. And that might be the whole thing. It's like, well, I'm not a Sith, but I'm not a Jedi, and you're coming to me to tell me what to do when I haven't committed a crime.
So this is interesting because that's a fun standalone adventure. Yeah. But like we've been saying, you can easily turn this into a good Star Wars sequel. Yeah. Keanu is Luke. Yeah. Tom Holland's character is actually Ben Skywalker, his son. And Ben goes off looking for one of these missing students or whatever.
Wants to prove himself.
Yeah, wants to prove himself to his father. He has this legacy to live up to. Maybe he's not that good a student. Yeah. He goes off and Luke has to go after him because he's like, it's not safe.
Yeah, that's it.
So him and a couple other students go off, but he's a supporting character. It's about Tom Holland's journey. You know, he gets into trouble. He gets in a bar fight. He meets a Mandalorian warrior.
That's it.
You know, he's like, "Can you help me? I'm looking for my lost friend." And they're like, and she's like, "You know, no one's seen a Jedi around here." He's like, "I got money." She's like, "Yes."
Credits.
Yeah, and then they can fall in love over the course of the story. Yeah, that could have been episode 7.
Yeah, that's just my, I didn't actually write anything. This is just the idea I've had in my head for a while, cultivating
you know
a
what
concept.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty simple swashbuckling adventure.
That's all you need, really.
That could easily be Star Wars Episode 7. Do the opening crawl, like I said, but instead of Rey Skywalker, it's Ben Skywalker and Tom Holland in this case.
Yeah.
And then have that. It's a fun adventure. And
then, if you wanted to continue on, I'm sure there are themes you could bring through into...
Yeah, and your main villain could just be like, maybe the student who ran off on purpose, and when they find him, he becomes a bad guy of the trilogy. Something like
or
that.
there's like another school of Dark Jedi.
Yeah.
If you want to do something like that, then you could have the bad guys of the trilogy could be Dark Jedi. Not Sith.
No.
Because there are no Sith anymore.
No.
But there's Dark Jedi.
Yeah.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah, I like that distinction.
Yeah, and also I think to keep in with the old tradition, maybe these guys don't even have lightsabers. Maybe it's all about the lightning.
Force lightning,
Yeah, or choking or what have you.
Well, that's why I kind of like the idea of the Knights of Ren, but it's like, as we saw with the new movies, it's like they had no idea what they were doing with them. We don't know who they are, where they came from.
Yeah,
I'm like having so Luke has his school. They're all peaceful and light and about, the Jedi way. Then you have one of Luke's ex-students who breaks off from that and starts his, we'll call Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
And so it's like an opposing school. It's the Cobra Kai to the Miyagi-Do.
Yeah.
It's simple. But depending on how far you want to take it, I think we talked about this one time. Maybe, I can't remember when. But, maybe Kylo and the Knights of Ren are grey Jedi. They're not dark Jedi. They're not light side.
They don't agree with
it's
Luke's
like they don't
teachings.
really... And so I think that will be interesting as well, especially because I think we also talked about with the Postman episode where I liked how it ended with single combat, where instead of a huge war, it's like just the two characters duking it out, the bad guy and the good guy.
Classic.
And I thought that would be a cool way to end at least the first movie, or, if not the trilogy, is like end with Luke duking it out with his old student and not killing him, but turning him back to the ways of the Jedi. Or, alternatively, which I think they're doing with the Cobra Kai series, is accepting that there's not just one way of teaching the Force. And letting this character, which we'll call Kylo, and letting him and his Knights of Ren continue. It's accepting that. I think, this is one of the reasons that we hate what Rian Johnson did so much, is because he was hinting at, maybe the Force is for everyone, maybe the Jedi do suck. It's like, but explore that.
Yeah.
And you can do that by saying, Luke realizes, maybe my way is not the only way.
It's an interesting idea. It's like the Jedi hold them, at least not in the original, not in the original movies.
Yeah.
But in the prequels and the sequels, there's this notion that the Jedis are the true inheritors of the Force.
Yeah.
And only they know the true correct path. But when you think about it, like Sith can tap into the Force as well.
Yeah.
So if the Force, like George Lucas wants people to believe, is intelligent through the concept of midichlorians, surely they would have a tougher time controlling the Force. When that's not true, they can do as much crazy shit with the Force as the Jedi can, arguably more.
Yeah.
When you consider that they don't have the limitations self-imposed by the Jedi.
Moral code.
Yeah. So I'm like, the notion that the Jedis are the arbiters of what it means to be able to tap into that is kind of a dodgy concept to begin with. I understand that since it's a Western, it has to be black and white. Good guys versus bad guys.
Exactly. But like I always say, the prequels ruined
Star Wars. That's right.
That's not what the Jedi were when the original came out. It's like they were knights in shining armor. The Jedis were heroes. There was no question as to whether they should be allowed to be the sole arbiters and sole teachers of the ways of the Force.
Yeah.
That was not a problem. George Lucas made it a problem when he made the prequels and the sequels and all the other expanded universe stuff that took on from the prequels. then it became a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys, they're up their own asses, they're bureaucratic, it's like, that's not what the Jedi are.
It's also
they're
because
space paladins.
the philosophy espoused by the Jedi in the original trilogy isn't that deep either. It's
No.
like that. There's no, in the books, in the larger canon, there's this whole kind of stuff. Oh, Jedis can't marry. They can't do this.
Fuck
they can't
that
do
shit,
I'm
man.
like, people spent far too much time developing like a whole code that control the lives of every Jedi.
When I think it's when Grand Moff Tarkin says something to Darth Vader of like, you're the last practitioner of that old religion.
Yeah.
People, and George Lucas himself, who wrote those words, they took that too far into like, it's a religion where you have to wear a certain thing.
There's all the commandments.
And you can only marry, you can't marry, and you can't do this, and there's commandments.
They turn Jedis into priests.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, they have that monk part of them, but they're monks in what I always thought, in the sort of Shaolin way.
Yeah, that's
where
right.
it's like, they're monks in that the fact that they're peaceful.
Yeah.
And that they're perhaps solitary, and they live in a temple. They're not monks in they have a priesthood and they can't marry and they have to beat themselves on the back and read from an ancient book. Like,
that's kind of what it almost turned into.
Exactly. And people take that, and it's like I said, public perception. That's what people think the Jedi are now.
Yeah.
The Jedi are not that.
No.
And this is why Star Wars can never recover. It's dead.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix it anymore. Yeah, it's such a shame too, because it's like, it seems so obvious.
Look, we've sat here for a couple of hours, maybe slightly more, and we've come up with so many good ideas. Yeah, some of them were more concepts and ideas, like mine, for sure. But, we came up with so many good suggestions on how to improve, and we're not professionals. I mean, well, technically, you have a film degree, I have a writing degree, but we're not practicing.
Yeah.
I'm like, we
always say, like, it writes itself, it's so easy. I know it's hard.
No.
I know. But you have to start somewhere.
That's right.
And J.J. Abrams, he didn't put the time in. He didn't understand Star Wars. He loved it. He had passion for it, certainly.
Yeah.
But he also didn't understand...
Very surface level reading.
Exactly. He didn't understand of like, well, if you're going to start 30 years after, you have to set certain things up.
Yeah.
Also, you're doing the first in the trilogy. You have to, make sure you know what you're doing there. Like, there's so many elements that I don't think they even tried.
No,
and
not at all.
that's the thing. Like, if Force Awakens was bad because they were trying to do something, but it didn't work out, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But The Force Awakens is bad for so many different reasons. And one of those reasons is that he didn't care and he didn't know and he didn't understand what he was doing.
No, that's right.
And that carried on with Last Jedi and carried on to Rise of Skywalker and carries on to Rogue One and Solo.
Yeah.
And even The Mandalorian, which I like, and continuing movies and shows in the future. It's all based on that rotten foundation, which I've talked about, with DC movies. Man of Steel is such a shit movie. Doesn't matter what you do. Anything connected to that universe, it's fucked.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't make a good DC movie. The best DC movie, Shazam, was good because it was the least connected.
Yeah. It also had a good understanding of the property.
Yeah, also that. It had that heroic... That's actually a good point. The reason people love Superman in the comics and cartoons is because he's heroic. He's light.
The all-American Boy Scout.
Exactly.
He'll be there when you need him.
Truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah.
Now you get Man of Steel, and people find that boring. He's just a goody two-shoes. Then you get Man of Steel, and Zack Snyder's like, extreme, diddle-doo, car, fucking guitar, explosions. And he's like, he pulls off his sunglasses, and he's like, hey, dudes, you thought Superman was boring? I'm going to make him edgy and violent and brooding and emo. And
did he snap his neck?
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck? And some people were like, yeah, Superman's cool. And I was like, no, you just fucking corrupted the character because you didn't like or understand him.
Oh,
you just wanted to make a Batman movie.
Yeah, and it's like
then when you made a Batman movie,
it's Batman killing people.
You had to make him even more extreme.
Yeah.
By having him being a tank guy just fucking destroying guys. But then he had to go up against Superman, who you've already turned into Batman.
Yeah.
So it's like, but they don't have warring ideologies anymore because they're the same.
Yeah, and they didn't even give Superman a mo. Or a mullet, I should say.
Oh, well, that was a Justice League problem, which we won't get into.
I meant a mullet. They didn't even give Henry Cavill a mullet like he deserved.
Yeah. But anyway, so the reason people love the Jedi, the reason people love Superman, the reason people love Captain America is because they're bright, hopeful.
Yeah, they're there when you need them.
They're the good. They're the light that protects against the darkness. And Marvel's done a pretty good job with Captain America, making him keep that core.
You know what? Like, I'm not the biggest. I am a big Captain America fan.
Yeah.
But I'm not the biggest Captain America fan. But one thing I will say is you cannot doubt for a minute that the essence of that character is in the movies.
Yes.
100%.
And even when he comes up to the worst situation, even when he's in his darkest place, he's still Steve Rogers.
That's right.
That guy who, like, that skinny little kid who wanted to fight for his country and who believed in truth and justice and the American way as well.
Yeah. No, but it's like, yeah, exactly. He's that rallying call. It's like, come on, guys, we can do this.
You can't tell me that the Marvel movies suck because they kept Captain America that way.
No.
So why would the DC movies suck if you kept Superman that way? And more importantly, why would Star Wars suck if you kept the Jedi and Luke that way? The answer is it wouldn't.
No.
It makes sense. It's what it should and always has been and always will be.
Yeah. And, you know, like...
But they had to subvert it. They had to play games.
Our conversation today has just filled me with so much affection for the EU.
Yeah.
So I was like...
I mean, I told you, I read the Thrawn Trilogy comic book because I didn't have time to read the novels.
Yeah.
Then I went on to the next one, which is the Dark Empire comic books. Then I read... I haven't had time to read all the Jedi Academy books because that'll take me a while.
Yeah.
But I read the comic book called Leviathan, which is about the characters, the Jedi students from the
I haven't read that
Jedi
one.
Academy. It's very short. It's like a one-shot.
Okay. They're all, awesome.
And it's like all those characters going on a mission. Luke sends them on a mission. It's just like on a mission. And then I read Union because that's about Mara and Luke getting married. And then after that, it's the new Jedi Order stuff, you know, the Yuzon Vong invasion, which is a long saga, which would take
I'm
too
up
long.
to Children of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Which I have to find that somewhere.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is, as good as they are, they still couldn't get over their obsession with
the planet-killing weapons.
Planet-killing weapons.
They definitely obsessed with that, and even like we said, the prequels went overboard with lightsabers. The EU does as well because you don't have technological limitations when you're writing a comic book or a novel.
No.
So it's like, everyone pulls them out all the time, but...
but like
it definitely makes more sense in the
There's also a lot more character development in the novels, so they can commit some sins, because they have some padding there. But
Look, looks like we might be getting kicked out of the studio pretty soon, so we'll wrap it up. Just one more thing. We could go on for another 10 hours, but we'll wrap it up. Another cool action scene that's different from what we've seen before would be an underwater action scene.
Yeah.
So, you know, Mon Calamari, where Admiral Akbar's from, that's a water planet, obviously. We haven't seen that in the movies before. Maybe could introduce that. Have like an underwater city, which we talked about earlier with the Gungan city, which was we were a bit iffy.
Yeah.
But, you know, having a city like that and having maybe underwater stormtrooper type guys.
That'd be cool. Like big rebreathers.
Yeah, with big rebreathers and like big blasters that work underwater or something. Yes, and maybe not spears, but you know, and you know, in the EU, I don't know if the lightsabers work underwater. So I don't know if that would translate to a movie, but that would be kind of cool. But anyway, that's just another idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so many different things we could talk about. But I think we'll wrap it up. It's just a shame that it's come to this. But you know, if you're out there and like us, you really don't like the Disney stuff, go back, revisit the expanded universe from the 90s. There's so much good stuff.
Like, there's problems, but I can't recommend it enough.
And it just, it makes so much sense and it keeps that core of what Star Wars is and the spirit. And it's so enjoyable, especially now revisiting it after having it been...
some of the bad parts don't seem that bad.
Yeah, that's another thing, So, it's a shame, but... It's also, in a way, it's renewed our positivity to an extent,
Yeah.
But like I said, I'll always love Star Wars, and
me too.
you know, but at this point, Disney's ruined it, and Star Wars is dead. But I mean, the good thing about this show is we can always come back and do another one of these episodes and talk about more positive Star Wars stuff, the original trilogy or the EU, or more of our ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for listening. And next week we're going to try and review season 1 of The Mandalorian, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you haven't heard our previous Mandalorian episode where we talked about the first 3 episodes of the first season, listen to that episode before you listen to our full season 1 recap and review. Nathan will hopefully be back for that episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. Like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tuesday Review AU. Follow me on Instagram at Channel Drifter, where I post every time I watch a movie. So I watch so many movies I don't get to talk about on this show, so you can keep up with what I've been watching there. And you can find the previous episodes of the Tuesday Review on any of your podcasting apps. Check out Callum, Jake, and Nathan's show Sunrise Arcade, where they talk about video games, and Maddie J's show Car Talk, where they talk about cars. You can find those wherever you listen. Yeah, thanks to all the cousins. If there's any new cousins, we appreciate you. Keep on listening. And yeah, there'll be more stuff in the future, and maybe we'll see where Star Wars goes, but kind of, I think we should wind it down with the Mandalorian episode. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Tuesday Review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That'll help us get more exposure. So yeah, thanks everyone again. May the Force be with us all. Adios, cousins.